unless you're really there on the ground, you don't realize that this is not a game, this is not entertainment, it's like real people. At the end of Gabby Petito, we didn't know that he was like abusive or that there was even trouble in their relationship. We had no idea. And also we had only seen videos of them from social media that were like beautiful. Suddenly there was this other visual now that has come out that it was like, oh my God, this is a whole different story. Everything changed in that moment.
Because now you had the image of the crying girl in the car, she still wasn't found, and now people were like, oh my God, they killed her.
There's so many weird things like...
You have been covering one of the most brutal murder scenes that anyone had ever seen. Brian Kohberger pleaded guilty. What was your first thought on this case?
There's just something especially eerie and freaky about that whole situation in the beginning. We didn't know if the person was a neighbor, was walking around. It was a small college town. Is the killer watching you when you're out doing your live shot? Even I remember like being outside the murder house in...
You have been out, as you said, looking at the Charlie Kirk case. It is certainly weird.
Yeah, I was there.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much, as always, for watching my channel. If you have not hit that subscribe button, can you please do me a huge favor and hit that right now? I appreciate everyone who's been watching these videos consistently. The #1 analytic we need to get these videos into the algorithm is you guys hitting the subscribe button, though. And when you do that, we get them in and we can continue getting great guests. So thank you to everyone who's already taken the time to do that. And thank you to all of you who are going to do so now. Enjoy the episode. All right, we got the news guy in here today, Brian Entin. It's been a long time coming. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. It's so nice to meet you finally.
You as well, man. I've been seeing you. We were talking off air. I've been seeing you since the Gabby Petito story, which you were like the guy on that and have been the guy on that story and many others since. But it's always funny. You and I were going through it. It's like people see you and they're like, oh, this guy came out of nowhere. He's like the guy now, but they don't see the 10 to 15 years before that where you're on the road all the time.
100%. Yeah, everybody thought that was like my first story. They were like, oh my God, this is your, where did you come from? And it's like, no, I've actually been like working my ass off for, 10 years. Like you said, 10, 15 years before that, slugging it out in local news, working my way up. Was working in Miami, and then I got the job at News Nation where I was working when the Gabby Petito story broke. And that was sort of like, I guess the story where people kind of found me. I mean, I had sort of a small loyal following, but that was sort of where people, I guess discovered me.
Now, where are you originally from?
I'm from Florida. I'm from Fort Lauderdale.
So you're from down
I grew up there. Yep.
You grew up in Fort Lauderdale.
I did, yeah.
You're normal.
Yeah. Crazy place to grow up.
Good for you.
There's not a lot of people who grew up in Florida. Like I was born in Florida. Most people are like come there later, I'm a real Floridian. Florida man.
Yeah, my friend Danny Jones always complains about all the goddamn Jersey and New York transplants down here. I'm like, listen,
it has gotten a little crazy since COVID though. Like so many New Yorkers came down.
Right?
Yeah.
What's the population change in Florida since COVID?
It's insane. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I was living in Miami up until I moved back to Fort Lauderdale like 2 years ago. One of the reasons I left Miami was just because it got so crowded. Like my whole neighborhood, which I love New Yorkers, but it all became New Yorkers. Like my favorite restaurants were impossible to get into. My gym became crazy. Like it just got to be nuts. Everybody moved there. It slowed down a little bit now though, I think.
Now, at the beginning of COVID, though, were you going on the road a lot, or even for guys like you, because Gabby Petito wasn't until fall 2021. Like
that's right.
In 2020 and then early 2021 when it was crazy, were you kind of locked down too?
No, I was on the road every single week during COVID, which was insane because everybody was staying home. Like the flights were empty. You could get flights all the time, super cheap. So I'd fly to Stories and be like, there'd be like 12 people on the plane. And the weirdest thing was like in the hotels, no one was staying in hotels. So I was always in hotels and it would be like me and my photographer, like literally the only ones in like an entire huge Marriott. And there'd be like, they'd have one person working at the front desk, no one else in the whole place. It was like ghost town basically.
Isn't it crazy that was only like 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think knock on wood, I was always on the road and I was okay,
Did you always want to do this, be the newsman on the ground when you were growing up?
Pretty much always, yeah.
What drew you to it?
Yeah, I was kind of a theater kid. to start out with. I liked theater as a young kid, middle school. And then I don't know, I just started watching the local news in Miami. Like local news in Miami is crazy. It's kind of like LA. Like there's like, the police chases every day and the helicopters are up and, fires and shootings. And I just got hooked on it as a kid watching. I was weird. I mean, I would make my mom, I was also into magic, by the way. I was a child magician. I would do like birthday parties and stuff. And then I went into the news phase and I would make my mom drive me. Like, you'd see the reporters on TV at like, 5 p.m. And then I knew they'd be doing their live shots again at 6 p.m. So I would make my mom, drive me out there so that I could meet them. And these people were like celebrities to me. Like I was obsessed with the local news.
You weren't like going in the background and blowing them up.
No. Yeah, which is what we deal with now. Yeah, no, none of that. More just like, oh my God, I love you. Like, can I get your autograph? You know?
They were the superheroes.
They were superheroes, especially to me, but to a lot of people back then. That's when like local news was king.
Yeah. Also Miami, like they're ducking bullets out there sometimes.
Totally. Yeah. Crazy news stories that I grew up with.
What are we talking? The 90s here in 2000s?
Yeah, I was born in '85, so it would have been like mid 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. You want some good documentary content, you go to Miami.
Sure.
There's definitely a few stories down there.
Oh my God. It's a great news town. I worked in local news there before I started doing the national thing. And I mean, it's never a dull moment. You got like crazy local politics, all sorts of corruption. You got crime every day. You got people eating each other's faces off under bridges. I mean, just like alligators. You can't leave
that down there. People eating each other's faces off.
Yeah, there was that big story in Miami. That was like a big national one years ago. There was like a guy on what was he on? He was on, what was that drug that everyone was on? Like bath salts. Yeah. He was on bath salts and like ate somebody's face off. And then you got like gators all the time, like, attacking people and stuff. So yeah, there you go.
Miami face eating attack lasted 18 agonizing minutes.
Yeah.
The grisly assault on a homeless man whose face was eaten by a deranged assailant lasted for 18 minutes and was captured on surveillance cameras. Rudy Eugene, whose authorities suspect may have been high on a dangerous new street drug known as bath salts, there you go, had to be shot 4 times by a police officer to halt the cannibalistic attack. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff happens all the time in Miami.
That's
like
Miami.
Some of it makes national news, but like it was a crazy news market. Yeah. So it was fun.
Yeah, it's like the good, trial baptism by fire.
It was.
If you will. You're down in Miami. It's like, all right, I can handle anything now.
100%.
Yeah. So you have, like I said, covered pretty much all the major crime stories since 2021.
Yeah.
We'll also talk about all the other types of stories you're covering. It seems like just whenever it goes down, they're sending you somewhere. Yeah.
It started, like you said, with the Gabby Petito. And that was obviously a big story that people got really invested in. I went to Northport, Florida, which is where she left with Brian Laundrie, in the van to go on the cross-country trip. He showed back up with the van. And I was one of the first reporters over there, which I think is why, people started following me. And it was weird because, the police didn't really like us being there. And there was no sidewalk outside Brian Laundrie's house where we could set up. So they kicked everybody off the street. And there was no real way to keep an eye on his house to see if he was going to come back. Or if Gabby Petito was going to come back. So I rented the lawn from the neighbor, like made this agreement with the neighbor to pay him and his wife so that I could camp out on their lawn.
Now, how do you go about? You just walk up to the front door and say, I got an offer for you?
So I had kind of become friendly with, like, I'm just like a friendly guy. Like when I go to these scenes, like that's just my nature, right. Like to just kind of like, I always make friends with the neighbors and like, I'm just talkative, and you also have a lot of time to kill at these scenes, like you're waiting for things to happen. So I'm chatty, So I had already become friends with them. And they had like 2 adorable pugs and I love dogs. So I'd always like go out and see their dogs and everything when I was just stationed on the sidewalk. But then when they kicked us all out, I'm like, what are we going to do? Because everybody was going live from the police station. And I'm like, I can't leave this house. Like something's about to go down. So anyway, I just said to them, and I felt bad. At first I was just going to like see if they would do it for free. But, I was like, it was me and my photographer and a producer. Like we were going to kill their grass and stuff. And it was kind of annoying for them, I think. So I was like, hey, we'll pay you. I forget what we paid them. Maybe it was cash. Maybe like, I want to say maybe like $300 a week. I ended up being there for like 6 weeks.
Is that out of your own pocket or are you calling up News Nation?
No, I think I don't know how we expensed it. Like somehow we found a way to expense it. But so, and they had like, and they were both like hardworking people. They would leave early in the morning, and they had like, I remember they had this little like duck statue by their front door, and we would just put the money under the duck.
Oh, this is old school, bro.
Yeah, it was old school. And then it was incredible because everybody else had to leave and we had our spot, and it was right next to Brian Laundrie. You know, Gabby Petito is the boyfriend who killed her. It was right next to his parents' house. So like we were right basically in there. We would go right to the line of their yard and we had a tent and we would just stay there.
Oh, you had a tent on the front lawn. We had a tent,
yeah.
You're like Dirty Mike and the boys.
Yeah, and because we had all our equipment and stuff, you know, and it was rainy, swampy in Florida that time of year. And I think it made his parents crazy because it was like there was nothing they could do.
Yes.
We were right there, and we saw everything when the FBI came and raided the place. Everything we were on our own little. We had our own spot that we were paying for, so like they couldn't do anything.
What is the legality there? Because like you said, they didn't have a sidewalk, so it was a little strange. Because I remember it. You know, you'd see this video and there'd be people out on the streets.
Yeah.
But you just mentioned like other people were forced to leave, but you were able to stay because you had permission to be on someone else's lawn.
Correct.
So how? Like from a First Amendment and maybe Fourth Amendment perspective, I'm sorry if I'm getting too technical, but what is the legality of police saying you can't be on the street itself?
So listen, this is like as a reporter, especially when I was in local news, I mean, you're battling this every day. You're always getting kicked out of places. I mean, usually if you're on a public sidewalk, there's nothing anybody can do. Period. Like you can stay on the sidewalk as long as you want. But that was the problem, is there wasn't a sidewalk. It was like this weird Florida neighborhood where it was just a road, and then there were like these two little like kind of like little canal, not really canals, but little ditches for this like the water, drainage ditches on each side of the road, and then the driveway. So there was nowhere to legally say. I mean, and they can say you're blocking traffic. You know, they can get you off the road basically, which is what they did. And there was nowhere to park. Which also, when we were paying the neighbors, they would let us. That was also a big thing. They'd let us park in their driveway.
But when you're in this tent, the cops weren't like doing in a tent.
Oh, they were annoyed. I mean, we beat the system.
So they're going up to the neighbors like, do they have permission to be here? And they're like, yes.
Yes, and like I mean, I had eyes on everything in that spot. I mean, they must have been so annoyed, and especially the Laundries too. But the police, I mean, I saw so many things during that month and a half that I didn't report because I was seeing everything up close. Like the police had put these hidden cameras up in the trees behind Brian Laundrie's parents' house to keep an eye on the back, because they thought when he did come back, they thought he was going to sneak out. Yeah. And I saw a lot of that stuff happen. I never reported it just because I mean, why would I go on TV and say that? I didn't want to ruin their investigation. But there was just the spot. Yeah, because then he would have known, and you know, but the spot that I was in, it was just I knew everything, and I never left. I mean, I would just stay there all the time.
Now that's interesting though, because that also is like a fine line of doing your job and also like trying to protect the integrity of the most important thing here, which is that an investigation is able to happen and people are brought to justice, or, you know, at the time she was found.
Correct.
You know, because they didn't even know where she was for a while, or weren't sure she was dead. Did you know that 1 in 8 Americans are currently prescribed anti-anxiety medications? It is a quiet epidemic that is sweeping the West right now. And people who start on these medications have a very hard time quitting. Recovering from benzodiazepine addiction or alcohol addiction is essentially like recovering from brain damage. But what if I told you that a legal mushroom that has been weirdly embedded into our culture is helping people to finally get off these GABAergic substances? I'm talking about Amanita muscaria, the little red top mushroom with the white dots that's depicted in Alice in Wonderland and Mario. This is a legal mushroom to buy, possess, and sell in every state except Louisiana. And thousands of people are using it to get off benzodiazepines and alcohol. This mushroom isn't only for people looking to quit their anti-anxiety medications. People are tapping into its power as a natural nootropic for focus during studies and work, a non-addictive alcohol replacement at parties, a dream-enhancing tool for vivid nights, and even a gentle aid for pain recovery. Amanita can do a lot more than help you quit GABAergics, and it's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. For years, there was a massive gap in the market where nobody in the United States was reliably importing this mushroom. That's where Minnesota Nice comes in, providing you with the highest quality raw Amanita and consumer-ready Amanita products at a price that you can afford. So use Minnesota Nice to help find your harmony today, and go to www.mnniceethno.com/Julian. That link is in my description below, and use code JD22 for 22% off your first order. That's www.mnniceethno.com/Julian, link in description below, and use code JD22 for 22% off. Much love. But what's that like when you, like you said, it's a long time where you're basically boring and doing nothing, and then boom, something happens and you have it, and this is a story everyone's watching around the country, and you can go right now in front of your camera and report it and get a lot of eyeballs on you, a lot of eyeballs on your network, make yourself some personal brand cash, if you know what I mean. And you decide on certain things the public should not have this because it could impede the investigation. What is that decision like? Because I imagine you almost have to think about that if you have integrity like you on almost everything.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think you have to make those decisions in the moment. That's where like this whole, like I still am really into Twitter X, but I was into it during Gabby Petito big. I went from I think when I started the Gabby Petito story, I had 30,000 followers. And I mean, I had within a month, I was growing hundreds of thousands per month, You
were #1 trending on Twitter for 3 weeks.
So there was this feeling of there was so much interest in wanting to get the information out fast, but also taking a second to think about the investigation, about, by that point I was starting to get to know Gabby's parents. And this wasn't just a video game or a reason for me to get popular. There was real going on, So I think that's where kind of the old school, I had grown up I started in a really small market, worked my way up for 10, 15 years. I had ethics from doing the job in local news, learning from different people who I looked up to. So it wasn't just about clicks. But there was this just hunger for information. And at the same time, you wanted to feed that. But yeah, I think you just have to make the decisions, and it's not easy. Like even camping out in the yard. I mean, what journalist does that? I think sometimes I've crossed the line. There's other things I can think of, and that I don't think I crossed the line there. But I got obsessed with it. I started following. So since I was camping out there, I would see every time the parents would leave, and this was when Gabby was missing. So I started following them.
Walking or car?
No, by car. And that's where I started. I was with Luis, who is my longtime really good friend in photog. And I think we started I remember telling Luis what is the boundary here for us? I don't want to be paparazzi. And we would follow them around. And then I started live streaming sometimes when I was following them because I wasn't sure where they were going. And you have to, in the moment, no one knew where Gabby was. Then Brian Laundrie went missing out of the house. I don't know if you remember that. He disappeared.
Yes. Brian, actually, if you don't mind, before we go into all this, just for people who don't remember the case or didn't see the Netflix documentary that came out, I believe, the end of last year, can you just give the outline of what happened at the beginning and what the nature of it was for them?
Yeah. So Gabby Petito, this beautiful young woman, was with this guy named Brian Laundrie, and they built a van together. Van life is really big. It's still really big if you go to Utah, Idaho. So they put together this van that they were going to live in and travel across the country. She was an upcoming social media influencer. So she was making videos, beautiful, YouTube videos and Instagram and drone. And there you go. There's the van. And so basically, they started on this trip across the country, and things go south. We would later learn he was abusive and didn't like that she was, sort of trying to build this business of, van life and social media. And he ended up killing her in the Grand Teton National Park. But it was just a massive story because she was missing for so long, and then he went missing. And I don't think maybe Brian Kohberger was as big, but there's not a lot of stories that come along like that where I think everybody was sort of fascinated and dialed into it.
Yeah, it kind of had every possible theme you'd look for in your Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah.
And not to make it not what it was, which was real life, but that's also something we could talk about in a little bit with what the public reaction was to it, and then how people assess that afterwards, because the reality is, unfortunately, there are a lot of incidents in this country that happen every day where someone goes missing,
Yeah.
or someone's abused by, their husband or something and ends up dead and is never found. And a lot of cases don't get the coverage. This one got the coverage, and I get it. But I think the documentary also did a really good job, the one on Netflix, of like kind of post the whole situation, wrestling with why do we have a fascination with certain ones versus other ones. That said, both, they were young. I think they were like, what, 24 and 20, something like that.
Young, yep.
And they had moved away from New York. They're living in Florida with his family. His parents, like you said, are at the center of the story, and it's like, what do they know? They go on this romantic journey across the country. One comes back, the other doesn't. Then you had the whole footage from when the cops pulled them over, so it added more drama. It had
it all on that, yeah. And you had, I mean, as a storyteller, as a journalist, you had immediately all of their videos when they were missing, so you could tell their story, and people saw them and became like obsessed because sometimes you'll cover a missing case, and it's like the family will give you 3 still photos, and it's like you got to make people care. And I think that it was like we were handed this whole envelope, but they had great YouTube videos, so people became very, very invested.
Did you get, trying to think, like how long was the process again from you first getting on the ground to they find Brian Laundrie's body? Not hers. They found his.
So maybe a month.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, at first we thought he was in the house, which is the reason I was camping out, because we didn't know, was an arrest going to go down at any time? Was she going to show up? My first thought when I got there was that maybe this was like some kind of social media hoax, like were they somehow doing this that was honestly before I knew anything. I'm like, are they kind of doing this for attention? Like,
oh, wow.
And she's going to, that was just what I first thought before I knew anything. So we were just waiting there and assumed that he was in the house, and then realized something really shady was going on because they would never come out and his family would never talk, which was just kind of weird. Like your daughter-in-law is missing and you're held up in the house, like hiding out. And then he went missing, and somehow, mysteriously disappeared from inside the house.
And you didn't see, you had no inkling of that.
No idea. And the police didn't either. And and one day they were just like, we now don't, that you talk about why it was such a big story. So all of it was big. And then all of a sudden they come out one day when everybody thinks he's been in the house, and they say, and now we don't know where Brian Laundrie is. We've lost track of him. He's not in the house anymore. It was like, oh my God.
And his parents weren't cooperating at all, which was, that was so strange to watch. It is impossible to put yourself in the shoes of, someone who raised someone for 20 some years and then is maybe in denial about what he did and is trying to protect their kid. But at the same time, you have another missing human being here. It's like morally.
Yeah.
You should probably help out.
Totally.
I think that's fair to say. But they were so, I would, from the outside, I'd describe it as they were stonewalling it.
Well, and we would later find out, I've been working on this now for years, but, through depositions and stuff, that they had hired a criminal lawyer in Idaho where, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes. But at that time, just back to what I was saying, like, I started following them because it was hard to not go all in, like just want to know, well, where are they going? What's happening? Are they going to visit Brian? Like where?
Did they catch you following them in the car?
I'm pretty sure they knew. And I think the FBI there was always like a few of us following, like, so it wasn't just me, like there were,
You're like waving to the FBI.
But again, there was just this moment. And when you went back to like kind of where do you draw the line in ethics? Like I remember thinking like, what is the line here? Like, should I be following? And, you get personally obsessed with something in a case. And I just remember saying to Luis, like, my photographer, like, where should we keep doing this? Like, and I remember like even my bosses didn't know we were doing it sometimes. We would just like do it,
Yeah, that was another question. It's like, how much do they know about your, not even minute to minute, obviously, as you just pointed out, but like day to day, like what your strategy was? Are you on the phone with producers at News Nation? Like, here's what I'm thinking about doing today. And
News Nation had just started. So, we're new. a new news organization even still, but this was the very beginning. So we are startup. We're still a startup, but even then it was like, you know how a startup is. We're already kind of like working everything out.
Yep.
And at that point, now News Nation does like, you know, we're on TV 24 hours a day pretty much with news. But back then we were only doing 2-3 hours a night because we had just started. And they would run like Blue Bloods and all these old shows during the day. So it gave me a lot more time to kind of like do those sort of, you know, I'd follow them for hours and like I didn't have to be on TV until at night. So I would tell, they kind of knew, but I think something in me was kind of pushing the limit a little bit during that, I think. But you know, I don't think you can be good at the job if you're constantly worried about like rules and stuff.
You had said a little bit ago that there were times earlier in your career where in hindsight you felt like you had crossed the line. What do you have examples of that and why you think it was across the line afterwards?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a few. I mean, I don't want to jump around too much. I guess we'll talk about Brian Kohberger later, but
yeah, we will.
You know, I've regretted some things, like I snuck into his parents' neighborhood, which was like a gated neighborhood, and I got a lot of heat for that, like people who felt bad for his parents. You know, it's just when you're in the zone of a story and it's so hot and it's so raw in that moment, and you're like, when we look back and talk about these things, it's like chill, you know, but like when you're in something that's that big in that moment and you're that invested and you're not sleeping and you're putting your all into the story, like sometimes you just maybe push a little too hard.
Is the mentality when you're doing this, I don't even know if you know this when you're in it, but I guess answer this as best you can. Is the mentality when you're doing this leaning more towards reporting the news and reporting the story, or actually because you are doing that, also like kind of being an investigator and solving it and helping the investigation itself with the professionals?
I think it's mostly reporting the story.
Okay.
Because, you know, I don't want to ever interfere with, like I said, I don't think I've ever done anything, hopefully, to really interfere with a police investigation. That's never been an issue for me because I don't ever want to do that. So mostly it's just reporting. But along the way, like when these things are unsolved, of course, you're thinking like sometimes you find things. I mean, even like with Gabby Petito, it was just a regular person who had some video that they found on their dash cam. You know what I mean? Like you can find things along the way, but I try not to go into it like I want to be a reporter, number one, you know, and just bring information to people.
Did you have, on the Petito case, going back to that, did you have, you know, towards the beginning of you being camped out and, you know, trying to uncover information, was law enforcement asking you questions about, hey, have you seen this or seen that, like to try to help with the investigation?
A little bit. They were really, I mean, they were under a lot of pressure, and a lot of people were calling them out at that time. I mean, they weren't, you know, the public was not happy with law enforcement during all of that, obviously. And then when he snuck out of the house and they didn't know, people thought it was just like a dog and pony show. So they were very careful with what they would say. I remember when I was telling you about how I saw I saw them putting up the secret cameras in the backyard of Ryan Laundrie's house, and like he had a neighbor behind his house where they put the cameras up in the trees. So I remember I went over to that neighbor and I was like, hey, like I saw them doing that, and he took me in the back and was like, yeah, here are the cameras, and here's like they had like a whole little antenna system beaming the video back to their police station and everything. So I remember I told one of the police like sergeants, like one of the higher ups that I was dealing with as a member of the media, I told them at one point that I had seen that and that I knew where they were. And I actually interviewed the neighbor and got video of the cameras. Cause that's kind of my other thing. Like you might as well, you don't have to use it. And I didn't use it, but like when it's all over one day, you know, I still wanted to document what I was getting in real time. And I remember telling them that and kind of like trying to show them that they could trust me, because they probably thought I was this crazy guy like camping, you know. But it was like, listen, just so you know, like I have this and I would never put this out. So just trying to build like trust in that way, you know. And I've had other situations like that in other cases with cops where I'll come across something and it's like clearly they wouldn't want this out. So, and sometimes I'll let them know that I have it just to kind of show like this could be an incredible. I mean, if I had put the story out in that moment with the secret cameras, like you said, talk about clicks, talk about views.
Oh,
I mean,
insane.
but it's like, I'm not going to do something. I've gotten to know the families and I want justice and I want them to find their daughter. And then also, like, I'm not going to do something where I can't sleep well at night. And, you know, I would feel bad about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not worth like one viral poster or one big story on News Nation, you know?
I agree. You have to toe that line, like we were saying a little earlier. It's a tough line to toe sometimes because like you have a job to do.
Yeah.
But I think people don't want to see that, like, let's say people in the media are like in cahoots with law enforcement all times.
Yeah.
But I think there's a really, especially when it's, you know, someone's missing or there's a life at stake, there's an appropriate middle ground there to where you at least say, hey, I got my job, you got your job.
Yeah.
But if there's something that can interfere with each other's jobs that is not in the public interest, we can make that call together.
Right.
And so, like you said, that probably helps in other investigations that you're then involved with where they're like, okay, we know this guy is not going to just like run his mouth every time he picks something up. And, you know, that's important for you to be able to actually get sources and do your job.
Yeah. And for them, I mean, solving the case is ultimately the end goal.
Yeah.
I mean, me doing a story, if that's going to impact that, it's just not worth it in that moment. But at the same time, like, you're not going to let law enforcement start bossing you around. And
that's the line.
And a lot of them will call it now, our media partners. And I always thought that was a little weird. Like, we're not your partner. Like, we're, you know, we can help each other. We can help you get the word out about things. But you know, it's definitely, there's not a clear line there.
Yes.
It kind of changes depending on the story and sort of what's happening.
And it's strange because you have to make gut calls a lot.
You do.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
And you mentioned like calling your producers and bosses, but like a lot of times you're the one there. Like, you really have to make the call. Like, you're the one who's seeing what's happening and who knows the players. So like, you can't really rely on your boss all the time.
And your boss being removed and wanting the story and stuff, they're going to be a little more, let's say, biased towards you reporting things. That's just the nature of the business. So you have to be able to say, well, am I shooting my load for just this one story and I'm going to fuck myself in the future? Or is this in the best interest for me to hold on to this and document it later?
Yeah.
Like
and sometimes you just don't even tell anybody or your boss. Like, that's the thing, like with a photographer and producer you're out with, like, you guys have usually a tight relationship, especially the good ones, because it's like there are things that you're like, listen, let's just keep this between us for now, because, you know, because like you said, other people will get we got it, oh my God, let's get it out, you know, and it's like, then you're the one who looks like a jerk.
Did you know there's an online cannabis company that ships federally legal THC right to your door? And that they've found a way to combine THC with carefully selected functional ingredients to target nearly every mood and health concern you can think of? The company I'm talking about is Mood.com and their incredible line of functional gummies. And today, you can get 20% off your first order at Mood.com using promo code Julian at checkout. That link is in my description below. Forget one-size-fits-all supplements that only get you high. Mood's functional gummies are optimized to kick in as little as 15 minutes and take you to the mood you're looking for. Whether that's Mind Magic gummies for deep work and creativity, PMS support to ease cramps and balance mood swings, or their sexual euphoria gummies to help you feel ready for action and turn every touch into a full body experience. Listen, you can find gummies to just get you high pretty much anywhere these days. But Mood's functional gummies combine premium, federally legal THC with targeted botanicals to help you get into the perfect mood, usually in as little as 15 minutes. And everything ships discreetly right to your door. No dispensary lines, no awkward conversations, just better days and nights delivered to your doorstep. Best of all, not only is every Mood product backed by a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, but as I mentioned, our listeners are going to get 20% off their first order today by using code Julian at checkout. So head on over to Mood.com, link in my description below, find the functional gummy that matches exactly what you're looking for, and let Mood help you discover your perfect mood. And once again, don't forget to use promo code Julian at checkout to save 20% off your first order. Yeah, no, that's important to have that kind of relationship with the people there on the ground with you, you know? So you had said you've been working, what was his name?
Luis.
Yeah. So you've been working with Luis for a long time?
Yeah, so Luis is the best. So him and I worked together in local news in Miami before, and did all sorts of crazy things. Like, he's basically my partner in crime. We would, we did 1 million hurricanes. We went to Guatemala. There was a volcanic eruption. I mean, you name it, we had been all over the place. And And then when I got the job at News Nation, I was like, Luis, like, you got to come with me to News Nation. Like, I can't do this by myself. You know, you're like, you're my guy, you know? And I remember he was like, wait, what is this whole new startup thing? And we were at like a pretty established local station, the kind of place you could just stay forever, make a good living, you know, wasn't going anywhere. And finally I kind of convinced him. I'm like, this will be an adventure. Let's just do it, you know? So it's good when you have someone that you can really trust like that. And he'll dial me back too sometimes. Like, are you sure we want to do it? You know what I mean? Like I can trust him in that way.
Yeah, that's obviously incredibly important because, you know, I keep thinking there's not a huge difference. It's very similar to like what you're dealing with versus what like a friend of mine, Joby Warwick, deals with. So Joby's been a national security reporter for like 30 years, Pulitzer winner, the whole bit. And he deals with all this geopolitical stuff around the world. And he talks about it all the time where they will be working on a big story. And the minute they're about to press enter and go, some of their sources on other stories from intelligence agencies and stuff like that will call them up and say, great job on this. You got it. You can't run with it, though. And they'll say, why? And they'll say, well, because X, Y, and Z people are going to die if you do this. And then Joby and a group of other reporters who, at the end of the day, they're just going off of what sources say, have to go into a conference room and have a meeting to where they have to play their best, you know, throw a dart at the board and see what's right here as to whether or not they're being used by these guys to stop a story that's not in their interests or whether or not they're actually putting lives at danger. And then if that's the case, what is the public interest of lives, so to speak, if we report this? And I always think about being a fly on the wall in that room. I'm like, how do you even, how do you make that call? You know? And then the next day you read like, 20 people executed. And it's like, you know? Like
I mean, that's hard. Yeah, sort of. I mean, that's harder than what, I mean, if you're dealing with like, you know, lives on the line and you have to make those calls. I don't know that I've ever had a situation quite like that, but I've definitely had a lot of situations where the cops have called me and been like, can you hold off for a day or two? And usually I'll do it unless I feel like we're being used or we've already held off for a day or two. And it's like, come on, like, you know? Yeah.
When you first got on the scene and thought, you know, you were saying your gut reaction was, oh, they're doing this for social media clout. She's going to pop out. When did that change and you suddenly were like, wait a minute, something happened here?
I think it was when his parents weren't coming out of the house. Because like most of the time when you go to a story like that, like, you know, the parents will come out and talk like, where's Gabby? Like, we need help, you know? And it just the way they were acting just didn't make any sense. Like not only not coming out of the house, but like they'd run to their car, like, you know, to avoid it was kind of like, why are you acting like this? Like if there's nothing wrong here. And that's when I started to think like, okay, there's more to this. And I thought I was just going to be there a couple days, you know, like most stories you show up, you know, something usually comes, there's usually some kind of outcome in a couple days, 3-4 days a week. I had no idea that I would be there that long. And then I ended up like retracing her whole journey. I did the road trip, you know, when I ended up just becoming a story that I worked on, you know, pretty much nonstop for, you know, months and months and months.
Yeah. It's one of those that you'll be talking about on documentaries 30, 40 years from now, for sure.
Yeah. And it's weird too, because I've become close to her parents now, and, you know, consider them friends now. It's just a weird sort of, it makes a weird circle in a way, you know. It's like you start out, it's such a story that you're into, and then by the end of it, you're friends with all these people who were involved and you care about them, and it just takes on a whole different, you know, life in a way.
It's kind of strange, but this is the nature of the news business. It's strange when, you know, your job is to go get stories, and then you work so hard, and then you have your moment where you do an amazing job reporting on a story, but unfortunately in the middle of it, you know, there's insane victims too. Yeah. You know, extended families, direct families, a young woman killed in her prime. Like, that's got to be a little weird, right? Where it's like, yeah, this was a huge moment for me and I did my job and probably helped the case come to a conclusion, by the way, with the reporting you did. But, you know, there's an empty hole left behind for people.
Yeah. And I think for especially like on social media and the sort of the true crime community, they get so obsessed with these cases. Some of them think of it almost it's like a video game or like a movie they're watching. And unless you're really there on the ground, you don't realize that it's like real people.
Yes.
This is not, you know, this is not a game. This is not entertainment. And for me too, like, of course, number one is reporting, but you know, you're human first, and you kind of just have to take a step back. And I was thinking, you know, at the end of Gabby Petito, at the end of Kohberger, like I sometimes have this moment, you know, when I can finally feel like I can kind of become friends with the families more than just like me always doing my reporting thing. And it's nice to think, wow, I came out on the other side, and you know, these people aren't mad at me. You know what I mean? Because it's like you go so hard, and there's so many moments where you could really piss these people off because you're bugging them, and that's the other thing. Like, you know, there are things you're putting out that they don't always like about the victims, or, you know, because you got to do it. I mean, that's your job, but it's always a good feeling when you come to the other side and it's like, there's the good guys and the bad guys. And it's like, the good guys are cool with me, even after all this, you know? When
did you first come into contact with her parents? What part, you know, where were we at in the case at the time?
It was pretty early on. They were doing, they started doing press conferences with their lawyer, basically saying like, you know, please, anybody with information. And then they started saying, you know, that Brian Laundrie's parents weren't responding to their calls. And I think it was around that time when I started texting with them. And it just kind of grew from there. But she has a really unique, cool family.
Yes.
I mean, they're cool. Like her dad, Joe, you know, her parents are divorced, but they're all really close.
Yes.
You know, she's got like 2 moms and 2 dads.
It seemed very, I'm glad to hear that that's legit too.
It is legit.
So genuine.
It is legit. And that's the other interesting thing with covering these stories is you get this like look into these families and these, even you put the crimes aside, like you get this really intimate look into these people's lives. And like with the Petitos, it's like, holy like cow, like, I mean, you know, my parents are divorced and they don't get along. Like, I'm just like, wow, like this isn't amazing. Like they're an amazing, and it's all real. Like they all go golfing together. They go on vacation together. Like it's really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, when you're watching a family come out and basically like beg the public for help, and you're starting to see the pieces come together, you see that you know, he's left the house at that point, which is crazy that do we even know how he got out? I
mean, it sounds like they thought it was the mom leaving one day and it was actually him, which is like so stupid. Like, how do you mistake him how do you think it's, you know?
She's like plus 200 on him.
Yeah. And she's like, I mean, it's like a woman. It doesn't make any sense, you know?
So no, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing it had to be like middle of the night, like back door, something like that.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
I mean, there's so many weird things. Like, you know, remember he ended up in this swamp, which was like a half an hour away. So then my life became, when they thought he was in the swamp, they didn't know he was dead, but it could be, my life would be like camping out at the house and going to the swamp. Like I would just go back and forth every day obsessively.
Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh my God, now I got to be at the swamp all the time. Like, and there was no cell phone service at the swamp. And it was before I had like a Starlink. So... like that was really difficult though. Imagine going somewhere for half the day and having 0 cell phone service in the swamp. So I wasn't able to talk to my bosses. When stuff would happen, I'd have to drive to tweet. Like, you know, I'd drive, get a tweet out, go back to the swamp. And
you're like the Ted movie. Sorry, I was sending a tweet.
Yeah.
It's like crashing.
Yeah.
Into the car.
It was so frustrating though. You know what I mean? Because I was like trying to get everything out so fast.
Are you afraid when you go out to that swamp though? I mean, it's you and Luis and who the fuck knows?
I mean, I'm a little afraid. It's funny. I'm not afraid of like killers, but I'm afraid of I'm a little afraid of like gators at night and stuff. You know what I mean? Like when you're right by the water, like that kind of stuff does kind of freak me out a little, you know?
Were you carrying?
No, I wasn't. No.
Brian.
Yeah.
You're from Florida.
Yeah. No comment.
I thought all you people carry.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm working for News Nation. You know, I got to be careful.
Yeah,
we got corporate policies.
They got corporate policies over there.
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Yeah. All right, I like that. Yeah, I mean that's you're talking about though someone who was trained to like live off the land. Brian Entin had grown up loving camping.
Yeah,
you know,
Brian Laundrie. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did I say your name?
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's so weird that he has the same name as me, and then with Brian Kohberger too. So it's like all these people.
Yeah, someone with the Bryans here, man.
Yeah.
But Brian Laundrie had grown up living off the land, and so he had, if I remember correctly, he had camped out in this swamp, which is a large area too.
Huge wildlife preserve. Yeah, and he knew it well, and he hiked there, and. So that people thought, perhaps he could be, would know how to survive out there for a while, which is why, I mean, they had crazy resources out there, feds, state, local police, people on horses, ATVs, drones, helicopters. Yeah. I mean, every day it was a massive search. You didn't know if that was going to be the day. And then, you remember, again, just back to the weirdness factor, they searched for weeks and weeks and we're out there every day. And it was so hot that time of year and just muggy, just middle of Florida, you know, and raining every day. And they're searching and these guys are coming out. I mean, every day they're covering every inch. And then like his parents go for a random walk in the swamp and like within like 10 minutes find him. Remember that?
Yeah, almost like they knew where he would have ended up.
Yeah.
And it's also weird. But it's also like, so it's another sinister level because they had to know at that point, he probably had offed himself.
Yeah.
And it's like they know, obviously they completely fucked up in this whole situation. It's hard to have empathy for them, but like on a human level, like imagine going in there knowing you're going to find the dead body of your son who also now went out a murderer. It's like you want to talk about just a range of things going on in your head. I can't even fathom that.
Totally. Yeah. And I tried to have that perspective a lot too. I mean, people come, like you said, I mean, in a lot of ways, I look back at some of the stuff they knew and it's hard not to think that they're bad people in some ways. But then I talked to a lot of parents throughout the whole thing who are like, when it's your own kid, people do things for their, when it's your own blood. And I got to talk to other parents say, I'd turn him in immediately. But a lot of people say, well, it was my own kid. I don't know. You
don't. A lot of people say, and I try to be really careful with this, it's a common line we can get caught using with anything serious. You'll say, if I were blank, then I would blank. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer with most things you don't fucking know.
Yeah.
It's not to say I would really like to think, and I'm not a parent yet, but I would really like to think that I would not have been as obstructive or just like straight up like offensive to people as his parents were. But from the perspective of like also trying to protect your kid, assuming maybe also you actually have it in your head that despite all the evidence to the contrary, he really didn't do this because my kid would never. It's hard to imagine what your mind might make you do in that situation. And it's just, I mean, it's tragic that the story is just a complete and total tragedy 360 degrees around it because of that.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I hate to skip around too much, but this just made me think of this because I covered the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Yep.
And I went back to Utah last week, and this kind of relates. I was talking to the sheriff there about Tyler Robinson, the suspect, his parents. Remember his parents turned him in and everything? And they were telling me how, the parents turned him in, turned their kid in. But now that the death penalty is on the table, they're not as cooperative. And it just got me thinking. It's like you did the right thing and turned your kid in, but once you may be executed by the state, is that where you draw the line of like, I'm not going to assist you in killing my kid? These are all just weird. You know what I mean?
They're weird.
They're weird,
Yeah. Now, I do want to come back to that case and give it the proper, go through and not get too far off it. But I had spoken to a source, and there's been a lot that's happened since that week, obviously, that we'll have to talk about. But I had spoken to a source who had some pretty inside information just on like when he turned himself in and the whole bit. And I can't even imagine what that did. There's one, I can't say this publicly like what it was, but there was one piece of evidence just like when they went to do it, I guess not evidence, but just something that really drove home the moral conundrum and just disbelief the father was in that just, made me almost pull off the road and throw up because you can't even imagine that your kid would do it. And I think from what I was told, the dad, at least at that time, really did believe that his son had actually done this and perpetrated it and was wrestling with that. And it's hard as a human being to not have empathy for that because obviously he didn't pull a trigger or decide to do anything like that. But yeah, we'll come back to that one because I do want to ask you about your reporting a little more specifically and give that the proper light of day. But one of the big things that happened here was when the video with Gabby Petito was when the video of the police body cam got released, what was a couple days before she was actually murdered, where they had this domestic dispute They're pulled over on the side of the road. I forget, where was that?
Moab, Utah.
Moab, Utah. And the cops separated them for the night, had them stay in separate hotels, and didn't book either of them. But the way it came down afterwards was like they were more investigating her for attacking him. Now, this is just kind of how I look at it. I'm not saying domestic violence doesn't happen from female to male sometimes, but like, let's just be honest, biologically, physically, like, you know, a male can attack a female in a way that a female cannot attack a male. You know, watching that, I know it's hindsight 2020, but when you first see that, are you like me wondering, like, what the fuck are the cops doing here? Why are they letting them anywhere near each other again?
Yeah, and that was also like a big turning point in the story because, you know, we didn't know that he was like abusive or that there was even trouble in their relationship. No one was really saying that. There weren't like friends coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, you know, things were really bad. Like, we had no idea. And so when that video came out, and also we had only seen videos of them from social media that were like beautiful, like, oh my God, like, oh, I want to be friends with this couple. Like, they're amazing. So it was like everything changed in that moment because suddenly there was this other visual now that has come out that it was like, oh my God, this is a whole different story. Like, there's something very bad that was going on. And we didn't know that. And when we saw the video, it was like immediately apparent. And I remember like other domestic violence victims, women were immediately like drawn to that video, and they saw so many things that I didn't see. Like that, as a woman who was a victim of domestic violence, like they could immediately see things in that video and things she was saying and doing and trying to cover for him. And I remember just on social media, people were so quick, they were like going through the video, and it all became different after that video.
What kinds of you just mentioned it, but like things that she was saying, or what were some of the specific things that you were like, oh my God, I wouldn't have seen that. But people were pointing out like, oh, it's right there. Just
the way that she was trying to cover for him throughout the whole thing. The way that she started like blaming herself, kind of like victim, you know, blaming a little bit. I mean, if you watch the whole thing, I've gone through it with like experts before who can literally like go frame by frame almost. And it's become like a police training tool now because they, you know, they did a whole report in Moab at their police department and, you know, acknowledged that they made all sorts of mistakes, things that they didn't recognize.
Yeah.
And they could have arrested her, by the way.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They were more like talking to her and
but I actually,
him like, you okay, man?
Yeah, but you know, at one point she appeared to be the perpetrator, but it's like then, you know, you almost wish they had arrested her because that would have changed everything. If they arrested her, her parents would have, you know, probably found out. It all would have come crumbling down. Maybe they would have come out to get, you know what I mean? Like, I wish they would have done something instead of just basically separating them, sending him to a hotel, and which was also weird. You're in the middle. I've been to Moab. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere out there. They were right outside like one of those national parks. You send him to a hotel and like keep her with the van by herself. Like that was kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, the whole thing was strange. I'm not going to lie and pretend I had a ton of personal experience on how they deal with that type of situation where two people are far away from home too, but that did seem like there's got to be a better way to do it than that.
When
like
the
even
cops
like take someone to the drunk tank or something. You know what I mean?
When the cops felt terrible, by the way, because when I went out there, I interviewed the chief and, you know, heard a lot, and they feel terrible. I mean,
of course.
I mean, it was like terrible. Like some of them couldn't work anymore. I mean, this was like they felt a lot of guilt.
Sure.
And it's so easy to Monday morning quarterback those situations. And there are so many people that go through Moab because it's touristy and beautiful. And there's a lot of demand. You know, they could have never known that it was going to end up like this. So in a way, I feel bad for the cops too.
Yeah, no, I do have empathy. There's a huge difference between being evil and making mistakes on your job. Yeah. You know, and it doesn't surprise me that they feel guilt for that, but it wasn't like when you watch that whole thing, I forget how long it is, but it's not like 2 minutes. I mean, it lasts a little while. When you watch the whole body cam, it's like they were trying to solve the problem. They just seem to have made poor calls on what the solutions were there to do that. They weren't there to be like, all right, what the fuck do we have here? They were trying to do their job. It's just obviously ended up in the most tragic way, for sure.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with you.
So, and also that's what really if I remember correctly, that's what set off the social media firestorm more than ever, because now you had the image of the crying girl in the car. She still, when it came out, she still wasn't found at the time. And now people were like, oh my God, like this is a domestic situation. They killed her. You've mentioned it a few times, but I think it's important to like actually look at it from your perspective of what it was like being in the middle of it. But when you are dealing with this modern day social media machine of true crime fans, which can be fine, but also go way too far with things, and, you know, personal investigators who decide to make it like their life's meaning to like try to solve this for clicks and views. How do you deal with that? Those. You know, because you're also like, you're feeding some of the machine, righteously so, with giving the story, but then you also want to figure out like, okay, how can I play my role to not have like the worst type of people just try to capitalize on this?
It was weird, especially after the video came out, because like a lot of social media people, true crime people, like true crime tourists, some of them call themselves, like came out to the scene then and were also there every day, and would, you know, walk the street and, you know, I don't remember the bullhorns. Like then they started to they'd come out with bullhorns, come out, laundries. We know, they call them the dirty laundries. People started like having flowers delivered to their house for Gabby, which became like a social media frenzy. So all day long, flowers would show up, flower delivery. I mean, I'm talking constant. Every other minute would be a new flower delivery. And they basically covered the laundry's lawn with flowers. And then they started like the dirty laundry. So they'd put laundry baskets on the lawn. They'd show up because I'd be out there in the middle of the night. They'd show up and they'd throw laundry baskets. So it got to be like kind of crazy and like just too much, you know? And a lot of these people would stay out there all day, and you kind of had to like, because I was on the lawn, you kind of had to like coexist with them. And I've always struggled with this because it's like they usually aren't doing anything bad to me. And I have to stay out there all the time. So I don't want to really become their enemy. Like, because they'll make my life miserable. Yes. I mean, they will. They'll turn on me. You know what I mean? They'll be behind me every time I'm doing a news report with a blowhorn or, you know? So I guess it's just, I don't know. I was always like, I don't know how to handle. I'm going to be nice to them sort of, because I just want to kind of keep them at arm's length, you know?
Yeah. Those are the ones on the ground though, which I remember, I'm not going to give some of it the time of day and give them attention, but I remember specifically some of those people. But you are also dealing with the people who are nowhere near this thing and are taking pieces of like what you report and a few other people report and like, you know, creating dark web conspiracies on the whole thing, which also, you know, I will remember some of those things would get 2 million likes on TikTok, and it's got to impede the investigation.
Yeah, no, totally. It's frustrating, and they'll use clips of your news stories, and you know, use just a little clip to make it seem like one thing, and it's so wrong. Like what and their theories are so wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just know it. You're like, I know the case. But I don't know that they really care. I think it's just like for clicks, and I think there's also like a segment of them that whatever is the truth, they'll do the opposite. Like that's just their thing. Like that's just what they do.
I think you're 1,000% right about that. We live in especially post-COVID, and I understand the genesis of this, but we live more and more in a world of automatic contrarianism. Whatever is said, therefore the opposite must be true.
Yes.
And I've said this till I'm blue in the face. I'm sure people are sick of it, but I always refer to like the universal law of physics. For every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. I want to live in a society where those actions are like this. But we're living in a society where those actions are like this, and it creates more violence to get to, no pun intended, but, you know, to get to an equilibrium point. And I think when it's happening on things that aren't political, you know, Gabby Petito's a tragedy. It's not like it's not supposed to be a political story or anything like that. It just shows you how far-ranging that mentality is at every level of our culture now.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't even know if when I was covering Gabby Petito, I thought of it that way, but I think now that I've done more of these cases, I realize I do think that's what people do. Whatever's happening, let's say the opposite, and there'll be an audience for that.
Yep. How did you, once they found her body and you knew now she was deceased and all signs pointed towards the now missing Brian Laundrie as the guy, like, you know, how did you still do your job without injecting opinion. And specifically what I mean by that is, of course, it seemed very obvious that he had done it, but we didn't have him in custody. And there was a while where the cops didn't even officially say, like, he's our guy or whatever, and your job is to report the news and, you know, try to be unbiased about it. How do you toe that line when walks like a duck, quacks like a duck? It's probably a duck.
Yeah, I think by that point, like I was so tired by that point. I was invested. I remember I was doing this one live stream. It was late at night. It was dark. Everyone else was gone. A lot of times it was just me and Luis there because we were on the lawn. And I was doing a live stream on like Twitter. And I remember I was walking down the street in front of the laundry's house after they had found her body. And I remember like I was in flip-flops and like gym shorts. And it was like I think it was a Friday or Thursday. And I just remember like it hit me. I had kind of crossed the line a little bit of just being like sad. I mean, of course it's okay to be sad about it, but like I remember thinking to myself, like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't your job. Like you've gone too far. And then I remember looking at myself like in my gym shorts, like, you know, it's okay to wear, but I'm just like, I'm in freaking gym shorts and flip-flops. Like you know, yeah, there's nothing wrong with no, but I just mean like, I don't know, that combined with like me feeling like I was getting too emotional. And I remember this moment of just like, I think you're going crazy a little bit. Like, I think you're just tired and you got to go home for the weekend. So I remember that. And by that time when she was found, I felt a little less of a need to like stay there. I mean, he had been found, she had been found. I mean, granted, I was still wondering if the parents were maybe going to get arrested or something. But I remember that was one of the first weekends I went home. It was just kind of like you need to like chill out a little bit, you know? Like you're kind of like losing it. So, and I think I was also sad. I mean, I had gotten to know her family. I just became so invested. And then I went back. I remember I went home for the weekend and I went back. And then it became like people were associating me with the lawn in the house and expecting me to be there every day. Like in case the parents got arrested, like there was like this almost pressure to stay there. And I remember after like another week or two went by, I remember telling Luis like at what point do we leave? Like, do we have to stay here? Like, I feel bad leaving, but I also feel like it was becoming a little like, you know, when do we crossing the line a little like, okay, the parents aren't getting arrested. Like, when do we leave their lawn? You know what I mean? Like,
it's like, when does the story?
And I remember people were like mad about it. They're like, you can't leave. Like, no, you have to stay. Cause it's almost like they wanted justice and me leaving was like, I don't know, like they felt like they weren't going to get justice or something. As weird as that sounds.
Judge.
No. Yeah. Right.
You know?
Right.
I think that was just people's emotional attachment. Like it becomes literally, I used this phrase earlier, but it becomes your meaning of life.
Yeah.
Like when you're involved.
Yeah. People would be like, I have your notifications on. Like every time I would go live from out there, like they were so glued to it. Yeah. And then it was kind of like, you know, well, I think it's done, you know?
Yeah. That was where the News Daddy Brian thing was born,
Yeah. That's where the News Daddy came from.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, now you're going to carry that around forever.
Yeah.
It's a pretty hard nickname, you know?
Yeah, it's not bad, I guess.
Yeah, you got like a good cult following of females.
Yeah, at first I felt kind of bad about it. I'm like a daddy. I don't really know. But then I was like, I just kind of embraced it. I mean, I don't ever like really use it myself, but like at first I was like embarrassed. Like, no, please, no.
He does.
Nishan, get that merch going, baby.
And now I actually thought about like, I don't know if I want to do it, but I thought like it would be fun to have merch and like donate all the money to like the Gabby Petito Foundation or something like that. But then I'd still have to be selling News Daddy stuff, which is kind of embarrassing.
Own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it goes to like a good cause,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, maybe
you got to be here for it.
Yeah.
By the way, when you were living in the tent for weeks, effectively, like, where do you shower?
Well, I had a hotel. So I had a Spring Hill Suites.
Okay.
That was the closest thing. So we would go back to the hotel and shower. And, you know, it was more like just sort of our like home base.
You weren't like fucking, Tom Hanks in Castaway.
No.
I was going to say, like, you looked like you were ready to go every day. I wouldn't have guessed.
And we could go. They would let us in their house to use the bathroom too, our friends who we were renting the lawn from.
That's nice.
Yeah. And it's so funny. Like, they still live there. And I still stay in touch with them. And the laundry still live there, and they they just hate each other. I mean, they hate each other.
Wait, the laundry still have not moved?
They haven't, no, which is super weird to me.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
They got to have no friends. I mean.
Yeah, for a while I thought they weren't moving because like they got sued by the Petitos, and that turned into a whole thing. And I'm like, well, maybe they're not moving because there's a law in Florida that like you can't take someone's house in a lawsuit. Like, I don't think every state has that, but in Florida, like if you sue someone in Florida and you win, you still can't take their house. So I was like, well, maybe they're just staying there, like just in case they lose, like they'll still have their house. But now that's over with and they still haven't left.
Did they settle that case?
They did.
Out of court?
Yeah, they settled out of court, but like a lot came. That's where we found out about them hiring the lawyer early on, and the burn after reading letter, all these weird things that all came out through the lawsuit, which I think is what the Petitos wanted. Like that was their. I mean, I don't think the Laundries have a ton of money, so the main point was just to like make them confess all this stuff. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up actually, though, because we were talking about, how would you handle the situation, whatever. One of the really damning things that I can say goes well beyond what I would ever do as a parent in that situation was when that letter from the mom, the burn after reading letter came out, where I believe the line in there literally was, I don't care if you killed someone, I would cover for you. Or and something about putting like a knife in a cake. And there was just really weird. Very strange. Yeah, strange. You know, so that whole dynamic was off, but that's crazy that they still live there. Yeah, I know. And I still, like I said, I still talk to Keith and Debbie. And they hey Keith, hope you're watching. And sometimes we'll actually go by, like I saw them maybe like a 6 months ago, a year. Actually it was pretty recently. I was driving through there for another story, like that part of Florida, and we just swung by to say hi to them. And like they're just like so nice, but they're always like, they didn't like the Laundries before because again they have 2 pugs, and I guess the Laundries didn't like their dogs, which like who doesn't like 2 pugs? Yeah, pugs are cool. So like they kind of had a weird thing before this, but now it's like, you know, the whole neighborhood's kind of turned on them. Yeah, just imagine going out for they don't do newspapers anymore, but you're going out to get your mail. Just like staring each other down. Oof. I know, awkward. Oof. Yeah, I did notice they put a big hedge up in front now. The Laundries did. They didn't have like a hedge before, so I guess they learned from the first time around. I guess there's a second. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope not. But when Gabby was found, and then I guess it was within a few days they found Brian's body, and it was clear what had happened here. You know. You've been talking with the parents this whole time. Like you said, she had this amazing family and extended family and all that. Obviously, they're devastated. Obviously, we saw that publicly. They went and talked at these press conferences about it and everything. But like, you know, what's that like talking with someone where you've become close to them during a story where you're hoping you're going to be able to find their missing loved one, and now the worst has happened, so they have closure, I guess, but they don't have whatever that even means. But the worst possible outcome has now happened. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Usually I honestly just try to like back off at that point for a while. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, what am I going to do at that point? You know, I'll usually send a text or like a call, maybe one call. I'm so sorry, you know? And then it's weird now that I've covered like more of these kinds of things, and they're all different, but like, you know, tragedies like this, it's weird how like when you do one now, it's almost like you can see what it's going to be like for these parents even before they know, because I've seen it with the other cases. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yes. Which is a really weird feeling. Yeah. And like, sometimes I'll connect people with Gabby Petito's parents. Like, oh, wow. Yeah. Like I've done that like 2 times where I'm like, you know, let me put you in touch with, you know, because everybody knows Gabby Petito. So I'll be like, you remember the Gabby Petito case? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I covered that case. I'm like, would you want me to put you in touch? Like maybe for like if it's a new mom that I'm talking to who just lost a kid or something. I'm like, do you want me to put you in touch with Gabby's mom? And Gabby's mom has always been cool with that. So I don't even have to ask her anymore. And I'll give them her cell phone number, because it's like they're like in this weird club that no one else can understand. That like, no one wants to be especially with all the media attention. I'm like, if you need help navigating all this, like, you know, and then they'll talk to them. Good for them for doing that. Yeah, they'll do it every time. That's amazing. Yeah. You know, again, I don't know how I deal with this kind of thing, but you might think that, you know, after something like that has happened, you go through this whole thing, you don't want to ever be around that. It's got to be traumatic to be around that, but for them to like, I don't know, pay that forward or however you would say it to help other people in need. They really are amazing people. They are. And I just interviewed them. I interviewed Gabby's mom and stepmom, Tara, maybe like a month ago. And because it had been like I think it had been 4 years or And, you know, I talked to them so much in between and connected them with people and talked about their foundation and all sorts of like kind of not businessy, but like, not things about Gabby, just like, oh, can you talk to this family? Or they'll also reach out to me because people will come to them with missing cases, and then they'll be like, hey, can you cover this case?
Oh, wow.
Like, it's not getting any coverage. But then when I did the interview with them like a month ago about Gabby, I kind of forgot, like, I mean, I was even guilty of it. Like we said earlier, people forget how real it is. Like they were emotional again. And I'm like, oh my God, like I forgot, like this is still like so real. This is still their daughter. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, of course. You never.
Yeah.
I think that's the one most unfathomable thing is burying your kid.
Yeah. You forget because they are so strong in public and they're so on the phone and blah, blah. But then I was like, oh my God, like I got to remember, like this is still raw in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And they had the support of like an entire nation at the time
Yeah.
or whatever. And just like you said, you feeling weird about leaving the tent because the story is mostly happening is what it is and your job is done. Whenever someone dies, it's like, if you're lucky and you have a lot of loved ones, people are there for you. And then the next week, life goes on.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing. But, for them to go from that to that, as far as public support and things like that goes, because the world goes on, I can't imagine that. And, it's always a hole there that can never be filled in any way. And that's why I'm not envious of the job you have to do on a lot of these cases, because I know you're a news guy and like you have a job to do and all that, but it's very clear talking with you today. And I really kind of knew this before you came here. It was pretty obvious. Like there are pieces of this you always take home because you're like, of course, these are real people involved. You get tight with them, in some cases. And then you're like, damn, and just like you said, you talk to them 4 years later and it hits you again. Like, wow, their daughter's gone.
Yeah.
What do you even say?
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's like you got to remind yourself of that a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's easy a lot of people out there will take advantage of these families because they go from being just regular people to thrust in the limelight with everybody wanting a piece of them. And, people will just sort of, take advantage of them.
For sure. It's also like you get strange characters in the middle of it, like the lawyers and stuff, who do have a job to do.
Yeah.
By the way, their job is to give the constitutional right for someone's defense. So I empathize with that. But then, in the middle of like someone being missing, the tactics that are used are strange. And it's like, what's the moral boundary there? It's almost too much for me to even try to process.
Yeah, and there's people that suddenly show up, not with the Petitos at all, but like some of the cases, there'll be like some extended family member that shows up that suddenly the family spokesperson, and you're kind of like, and they're always wanting to go on, and then they create the GoFundMe, and there's a whole kind of weird dark side
for sure
to all of this that sometimes comes out.
For sure.
That you kind of see over and over again, and you're like,
Last question on the Gabby thing, just because we mentioned it a little earlier, and it's an interesting, like, I don't know, Monday morning quarterback thing of looking at it. But how, like, as someone who sees how big this story got literally from the inside, how do you look at it when you have a case like this where there's one very innocent life taken and it becomes a phenomenon and everyone's trying to solve it and they support the family and there's also love that comes out of a very tragic situation, when in fact there are, like I was saying, there are many other cases that happen every day where people don't get that attention.
Yeah.
Because part of it is, let's be honest, like what can the news story sell? What's going to get people's attention? If someone gets lost in the hood where 100 people get lost in the hood all the time, we can't sell that. But if some girl from suburbia who is, a beautiful social media influencer, or at that time aspiring social media influencer disappears, everything stops. Like, how do you, I don't know, morally weigh that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I had never heard of like missing white girl syndrome, I think they call it. Like people started talking about that, like, oh, you guys only care about like if they're pretty white girl, basically, And that started popping up during the case, but I was so into it at that point. I was just like, I don't have time to even think about it. You know what I mean? Like I was obviously doing that. But when it was over, I remember we started thinking about it and talking about it. And again, News Nation was really new. And it did bother me. And it kind of felt like, what defense do I have to this? Like, first of all, I had never covered like missing people before. That was kind of my first real, but I'm like moving forward, like I almost felt like guilty. And so I remember Gabby's parents started talking about it too. Like, And so I remember I went to my bosses along with a producer I work with, Paige, and we were like, we need to do something. And we started this missing series because of the Gabby Petito story on News Nation. It started out, we used to call it Missing in America, and apparently that was like, someone else already had that name. We did it for a while, then they're like, you need to change the name right away. So now it's called Missing.
That's your fault.
Yeah. But we do a case every week, sometimes more, and we focus a lot on minorities. We do white women too, but minorities, also men. There's a ton of missing men that just never get coverage because no one cares about a missing man, And so I don't know how many hundreds of cases we've done by now, but I mean, literally every week, Marnie Hughes on News Nation does it. And so that was born out of the Gabby Petito story. Yeah. So that's a nice, there's still more we could do, but at least you don't feel like you just turned a blind eye to that. And we've had success stories too. We've had people found.
Oh, you've had people found from that.
Yeah.
Series?
And it's hard to say if it's because of our series, but
definitely helps.
Yeah.
Also, even if it just gets law enforcement to be like, oh shit, we should look at that one again.
Yeah.
Just gets the wheels turning.
Totally.
Do their job.
Yeah. And we do a lot of old cases too. So you call up, like you said, you call them up and you're like, we're doing that. I think it kind of, makes them feel a little more pressure.
Yeah.
And our bosses, kudos to them because, there's so much news in the world now. It'd be easy for them to be like, well, let's put the missing series aside but we've done it every single week since Gabby Petito.
That's great too, because it's also there's a responsibility there. And like you said, this was at the very beginning of News Nation existing. And it's one of the things that put them on the map. So
totally.
Paying it forward that way, I think is great. It's a strange situation to be in because you don't control where people's attention is.
Right.
But it's also if something bad has happened and people have attention there, you're going to report on it.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Totally.
But, something like that is really helpful. But like we were saying, you cover a lot of different things. You're on the scene all the time.
Yeah.
This is our third try trying to do this because it's you're sitting in here and I'm like, oh, good, someone didn't die this week.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to where it is. But you have been out, as you said, looking at the Charlie Kirk thing. I do want to say before I ask you about this, it's a bizarre case. There is all kinds of I don't even know what to call it online with people speculating about this. It is certainly weird. It has been weird since the beginning. I try to be very careful with where we go with this, discussing it publicly. So just download if you can. Were you there the day after or how soon were you there?
I was there the day of after it happened. Yeah, I was in New Mexico interviewing the governor of New Mexico. I was in her office doing a story about she's a Democrat, a tough on crime Democrat. She called the National Guard. I won't go on a whole tangent, but she called the National Guard in herself. You know how everybody's in these other Democratic cities are mad the National Guard's coming? She did it herself because crime was so bad in New Mexico. So I was interviewing her about that just because it was interesting. So you're the Democrat who likes the National Guard. You know what I mean? And so it was an interesting story. So I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico in her office, and she had CNN on when the video started coming up that he was killed. I think at that point, not killed, but just, that he'd been shot.
If you saw the shot.
Yeah. You kind of knew.
Horrible.
And it was interesting. She was actually, she's a Democrat, but she's friends with the Utah governor. And she called the Utah governor right while I was in the office and was like, I just want to let you know, I saw this happen in Utah and I'm thinking of you right now, which was kind of a cool moment of you don't see that stuff on TV where you just think they all hate each other. You know what I mean?
It's human.
And she's friends with him. They were in some governor's conference together or something. So,
what did you think when you first saw that? Brave New World?
I think I just thought, I think honestly, just to be totally, I was like, I got to get out of the governor's office. We got to go to Utah. That's what my first thought was. Just because when we were doing the interview and I was just I was trying to be polite, but in my head I was like, we got to get the F out of here. You know what I mean? How are we getting to Utah? Yeah. So luckily there was a flight and from Albuquerque nonstop to Salt Lake. So I was there, I got there, I think I got there right after the sunset, that night.
Mm.
Yeah.
Tyler Robinson is arrested 2 days later, something like that. This happened on a Wednesday. He's arrested the night of Thursday into Friday. And it was basically announced by Trump without saying the name, I guess, on Friday morning on the TV. But when he's first taken into custody and the president has said, his father saw him and recognized him and turned him in, where was your head at that point? Like, okay, sounds about right? Or
Yeah, so I was out there again working late nights and stuff, staying out there. And I had a source the night before who kind of told me like around midnight that they thought they had the guy, but I didn't have enough information to go on it at all. Like, and it's interesting, some of the other reporters that I know from other networks who were there that I'm friends with were kind of getting the same information, but none of us were reporting it. Just because like something like that, you're not going to report it unless you're like, you got to have a couple sources and be 100%. But there were definitely rumblings like this was coming to an end. And then when it was Tyler Robinson, what did I think? I was just like surprised, I guess, that it was just a normal guy, like a normal kid. I think that, you know what I mean? I think I was thinking it was going to be like someone, when I say normal kid, just, I guess I don't know, maybe I was thinking it was going to be like a more organized thing or something, you know?
Yeah, because like it was almost like the tone was, all right, yep, there it is, we got it.
Yeah.
And then that's where it got weird because, first of all, there's video of the crime scene immediately being tampered with right afterward, which is weird. Now, I know it's a chaotic situation. All the cops like ran and went with his body. Totally understandable. But, you know, there's people putting stuff in their pockets. There's a couple cops left behind that are like letting people video right there for a while and then being like, oh, you should leave. And then within days, they're paving over this whole area and changing the whole.
That was interesting. And I noticed that when we were out there, they were like immediately, like there were like backhoes and stuff. And I was just back there last week and went back to the spot, and it does look like they just, you know, put new pavers in that area. But yeah, that was kind of strange that they did that quickly.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. Well, no. I mean, it was kind of weird. You remember they tore down the house for Kohberger?
Yes.
That was also weird. That
weird.
wasn't like the day after, but that was kind of another weird, like, why are we tearing down the house when there hasn't been a trial? But no, it was, I remember wondering what they were doing too. Like, I didn't understand. And I mean, I don't want to add to the conspiracy theories but even when I went back last week, I was like, wow, that was a lot of like construction equipment for just, it didn't look like they really ended up doing that much. It was just kind of like they replaced the pavers and concrete in one area.
Yeah, it just, like, if it's not some sort of conspiracy thing, some of the things, the actions that have been taken since then are just horrible PR decisions because they feed all these things. And, you know, the 3006 bullet thing, I am not a ballistics expert, to be clear. I want to be very clear on that. But I know a lot of guys who are. And they're like, you know, I'm going to have someone in here in a month or two who's going to go through this, who's a full-blown expert. And it's like a 3006 bullet from 200 yards is going to blow the top half of someone's body off.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it was a violent hit, but his head didn't come off. It hit the carotid artery and a couple other in there as well. But, like, everything else was intact.
Yeah.
And so right away when they're telling us that, it's weird. And then they found the gun, you know, like right below there.
In the bushes, sort of a wooded area. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, how did he get it off there that easily? And the lack of transparency on the investigation hasn't helped, especially after, like, you know, I guess it was Charlie's producer, the guy Andrew Colvett, who was like his right-hand man. You know, he sends out this tweet where he's like, I spoke with the surgeon, and he said Charlie's neck was like Superman. You know, the bullet somehow didn't go through. With anyone else, it would have gone through. It's like the magic bullet all over again. It's like, by the way, even if for some godforsaken reason that were true, before you press send, count to 5 and just read that one and say, how's this going to play? You know what I mean? Like, no, he voluntarily did that.
And I don't know. I mean, like you said, I got to be careful. You have to be careful. I don't know. I went there last week and I sat down with the sheriff and the undersheriff of Utah County, who are part of the investigation since the beginning. You know, they're the local guys, the cowboy hats, good guys. I like them. And they went on camera with me, which they haven't done a lot of interviews. And they do not think this is a conspiracy, and they know everything. And they're like, look, if you don't trust the FBI, if you think don't trust, they're like, they're just two local guys. You know, and everybody knows them in town. The one guy used to be sheriff, and now he's another sheriff. Then there's the new sheriff who's been like sheriff for like 10 years.
Why wasn't there an autopsy? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
They didn't have an answer for that.
No. Did you see? Do you know how he got on the roof?
I don't remember.
Look up, if you can pull it up. Pull up my Twitter. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I did a video. So I wasn't able to get up on the roof the first time I went, but now it's all been opened up. You know, this last week I was able to get up there, but there you go. Yeah.
This is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So
let me give this a little volume, Brian. Hold
yeah,
on.
I mean, you don't have, it's just me talking.
Able to get the shot off.
So this is my first time actually seeing the roof where Tyler Robinson, according to police, was able to get the shot off. This is it was all closed off obviously when I was here last. They've got this fence up now, but you can still get pretty close. And so it appears he went beyond this fence, which wasn't here, and then all you had to do was jump over this little railing here, and then walk out onto the roof. And then on the other edge of the roof is where you could see the courtyard. But I guess before I saw this, I thought like he had to go some sneak way to get up here. And there's just, you see this is just a big open walkway, like where students walk back and forth between the buildings. I presume he just came up here, walked to the edge here. And then again, this fence wasn't here. And you could literally just pop over that other railing, and then boom, you're out on the roof. Walk a little bit, and you would have a clear view to the courtyard. In that surveillance video, when you see him leaving and running away across the roof, that's this area over here, and then he jumped off over in that area over there.
He jumped.
Again, you can recognize that from the surveillance video, and then ran across the parking lot here, and then he went over into the wooded area over there, which is where they found the gun. That's about as close as I was able to get last time I was here, but it's really interesting seeing it from this perspective again. The thing that surprises me the most is just how easy it was for him to get on the roof. Yeah, I guess I thought he had to like climb up on the roof or something. And for there to be that event there and for it to be that easy to get on the roof, really surprised me.
Yeah, that I didn't realize there was like a walkway there too. That makes a lot of sense for him to be able to like get away pretty quickly as well.
Yeah,
because there is the surveillance video now. I think it's all blending together. I think it literally, you see him like climb onto the ledge and then hop down.
Yeah,
right?
And then it's
not making that up.
And it's hard. You're not making that up, and it's hard because he kind of dropped something that is apparently the gun first, but it's blurry. That's one of the big things that I was asking the sheriff about. Like, can you say for sure that you can't fully see the gun?
Yeah.
And it's a rifle, and it wouldn't fit in a backpack even if you took it apart. I actually did a story. It would still. That's the part that I'm a little like. And he's like, no, you can't see it easily, but it is there, and he dropped it. And you do. It looks like you dropped something, but you can't fully see it in the video.
Right. What did they say? I'll come back to the autopsy thing, but there's a lot of other things before that. What did they say about the bullet and, the argument about whether or not that bullet could have ever left that little of damage?
They think that it's possible, that it's not, didn't ring any alarm bells to them.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I really got to have, like, when I have my one guy in here, that's where I'd rather. I don't want to comment on that myself.
Yeah, I don't. The thing with the conspiracy thing
there.
to me is like, and again, I don't know. I mean, that's the way I go into this. I mean, I wouldn't be up on the roof looking around if I wasn't trying to, so I'm not saying people are wrong when they think that or right. I don't know. This is just the way I think about it. I've talked to the sheriffs. You've got Cash Patel. There are so many layers. You've got the campus police. Like, if it's a conspiracy, like, is everybody lying, or like, is it who's pulling the strings here?
I don't think it would have to be that way. I think a lot of first of all, people call every single thing that ever happened a conspiracy now. And I think that actually hurts, hiding real conspiracies because like that is not the case. There are plenty of things where, whether you like it or not, it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's just like bad people did bad shit or, people were careless or something like that. But then there are the real ones. And there's some where when you look at something like this, when you can create a, to use the Joker term, chaos, like in the middle of everything where people don't know it's coming, even though people have their phones up, people are jumping around like this, creating different angles, different perspectives, illusions, if you will. I use that word very deliberately there. It gives room for a lot of people, say, in positions of authority, whether that be campus police, regular police, sheriffs, to not have anything to do with it. Legitimately not be in on it, not even have an inkling about it, but just because of the shock factor of what happened, all the little teeny things that 3 or 4 people were in on, you don't notice it, or it looks like it could be something else. That's why I do think people jump into conclusions with watching people reacting is going too far. Yeah. Because people react in all different ways. There's people who freeze.
But it's a state case. That's the other thing. I mean, the FBI is investigating, helping, but it's state charges. I mean, it's a local prosecutor.
Right.
I don't know. It's Utah where they're kind of like, I don't know, like again, these sheriffs were kind of like, I just got the vibe like they wouldn't be afraid to be like, they would want to tell their people the truth. You know what I mean? They're kind of like on their own out there. They don't really care about the feds. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're annoyed by the feds.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but wouldn't someone be sounding the alarm from inside law? Why would they be in on it? Why would the local prosecutor be in on it?
I don't think they would be.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I don't think those guys would be. What I do want to know, this is where it gets more to how they've been dealing with the case after the fact, is what the details are of his lack of cooperation. Because Tyler Robinson turned himself in, which by all accounts, that's how it went down.
Yeah.
That's what my guy like broke down exactly how it happened, and that appears to be what it was. And then suddenly, the governor comes out and says, but he's not cooperating. That was a little weird. Is it just when you talk to these guys, were they saying like, he's a killer that had to change of heart on admitting guilt because the death penalty is there?
Well, maybe. They didn't, so they were careful about some things they would say. I mean, it's an ongoing case. So like there were some things they weren't going to talk about, like him and stuff. I mean, he's in their jail and they told me he's getting a lot of letters and stuff, which was kind of, I guess, not a surprise. But in terms of specifics, they wouldn't go there. But it would make sense. I mean, once you get a lawyer, they're going to tell you not to talk anymore. I mean, if he gave the confession with his dad and the family friend, once he got in, that part I don't think is that weird that he stopped talking. Also, once you realize like they're trying, once you realize these people are trying to kill me.
Right. But like he knew he'd be facing that when he turned himself in.
Probably. But do you think he really thought all of that through?
I want to be careful because I don't want to say like what my guy said.
Yeah.
I'll say this. The way he was described to me was dead to the world.
Interesting.
Dead to the world. And there was a very clear piece of evidence on that, which is not how the father was described. The father was described as emotionally completely distraught.
And when you say he was described as dead to the world, Tyler Robinson.
Lights are on, nobody's home.
Like he was given something to be dead to the world?
No, they didn't say that.
Okay.
I mean that's a whole nother layer.
Yeah.
Maybe, but that's not what. More like, people that give you 1,000-yard stare, and they're just not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people also, I've seen it. People have psychotic breaks.
Yes.
I mean, you've just done something that is crazy. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I don't know. The text messages are weird, obviously, which the sheriff acknowledged to me. The text messages between him and the...
You're taking the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you what you thought of those.
Yeah.
It sounded like my
grandfather. I guess I just wanted to say, I'm not trying... I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to make the point one way or the other. It's...
You know that Steve Buscemi meme where he's dressed like a kid and he's like, hello there, fellow children?
Yeah.
That was the vibes I got from...
Very weird.
Right?
And even the sheriff admitted that to me.
No, that I appreciate
you
that.
know, he's like, yeah, you know.
So how does he explain, like, in admitting that, like, how
He's
does he
just like,
explain it?
he doesn't know. I mean, he's like, they talk to each other strangely, you know. And also the, you know, the roommate / lover, you know, where is gone. We don't know where. Maybe witness protection program. Yeah. So that's.
Don't you think like a little transparency, not saying like, oh, he's in our witness protection program, but be like, don't you think you could come out in press conference and be like, by the way, we know exactly, we're talking with him. We know exactly.
Yeah, well,
where he
they've
is.
made clear since the very beginning that he is not a person of interest, and they kind of went out of their way from the very beginning to say that over and over again, which makes me think that he's like very cooperative and they are kind of trying to protect him.
But also, how do you say that when he's on these texts? You know, in my opinion, when you read the transcript of the text, not like admitting or in any way that he was a part of planning it, he does seem to be like, oh, you did this? But
yeah,
there's also an aspect of like, you could be saying like, oh, you mean you did this? I'm going to write that.
but also like
this.
they dress up in these like furry costumes. Yeah. I mean, like, it's kind of like we're trying to, I don't know how to understand these people. Like, you know what I mean?
It's strange.
Yeah. Like they might just be really weird.
That is certainly,
you know,
certainly a possibility. And I appreciate you looking at this through the lens of like, yeah, because it's also like a brave thing to do in today's society where everyone wants to run to the worst case possible, like craziest scenario.
Yeah.
But looking through it to the lens of like, all right, what are the best, who am I talking with? What are the best facts I can get? You know, as the story changes, I'll change, but you really got to show me stuff that's more than like, look at that guy doing.
Well, and this is one of those stories where for me, I feel like my role is like, I will get, like, I put out the interview with the sheriff, got it on video, put it out, went up on the roof. Like, I will put out what I can find out, but I'm not like, you can do with that what you want.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to tell you innocent until proven guilty with Tyler Robinson. Like, you know what I mean? There's certain cases where it's like, I feel like I'm trying to show people like the outcome or the reason or who's responsible. But like with this one, it's like, I'm just going to give you the information and people can decide how they want. You know what I mean?
I think that's very smart.
Yeah.
The way
and also he's not been, I mean, he's going to go to trial probably. Like, it's not my job to say this guy's guilty right now. That's not the way our system works.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're doing it like by the book in a way. And
yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cause it like, God damn, the amount of, you know, whether it's purposeful or unpurposeful, but like jumping to conclusion as evidence, which I would describe as like, it will probably end up being misinformation around this. There's a lot of that. And it's very hard for me to keep track of all of it. I'm not even going to, there was one thread I was looking at yesterday and I'm like, what proof? And it was trending like crazy on this case. I'm like, what proof is there of that, though? It just sounds like people are looking at a guy's face. You know what I mean?
And it was bad, too. Like, just when I got there and when Kash Patel first put out that tweet. Remember when he first... I mean, this whole thing got started off a little messy. When you're dealing with the kind of thing that is clearly... people are going to be on edge and there's going to be conspiracies. Like, you got to be really careful. That wasn't a good start.
I appreciate trying to be transparent.
Yeah.
But... you have to make, in my opinion, a call between do I want to be the chief tweeter or do I want to be the chief of the FBI?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like the way he even worded that, my friend Ken Klippenstein, actually, shout out to him, spotted this right away. It was like an hour or two after the shooting. Remember like the George Zinn thing at the beginning? They're like, we have a suspect in custody. He used the word subject instead of suspect, but to the average person, it was like a quick announcement, like running to the tweet, going, "Look, we got someone. The FBI's on this, whatever." And Ken was like, "They said subject, not suspect." So now, you know, he had to quietly, 2 hours later, be like, "Oh, that person's been cleared." It's like, dude, you know, you don't have to give me. I appreciate it. You don't have to give me a play-by-play when you don't actually have information yet.
Yeah.
Which the George Zinn thing was kind of weird because that guy apparently just goes to like political events.
Yeah, he's just a whack job, it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they got him on like CP.
It's like child porn or something. Yeah.
So that part's like a little weird, but he has a 25-year track record of being...
they said he shows up at the city council meetings. He's like, just like everybody seems to know that he's just like the crazy person in town. That was the vibe that I got.
Right. So that's what the sheriff's, I guess, kind of put forward to you as well.
Yeah.
So he's not a suspect in relation to the case in any way at this point, you'd
not
say?
from anything I've seen, no.
Okay.
No.
Now, I got on the phone with Joseph Scott Morgan 3 days after this, who's been on my show 4 times before. Great guy. He's the death investigator. He's the guy, you want to know about forensics, you want to know about the process in any state, he's going to walk you through it like it's a fucking Tom Clancy novel.
Of course.
But one of the things that was a little weird to me at first was, I think, so he's killed on Wednesday, and then Friday social media posts went out. Some of those posts like show his wife with the casket and all that, and you can deduce from previously seen news video that those pictures that were taken with her around the casket were taken around midday on Thursday, so really less than 24 hours after he had been killed. And what's clear looking at what they showed of the body is that he had been embalmed and he's in a casket. So I was like, is that a little weird that a guy was killed less than 24 hours before and his body's already embalmed and prepared for transport? So before I said anything, I call up Joseph and I said, am I crazy? And he said, no, you're not crazy, but here's why it works. And he proceeded to walk me through hour by hour the Utah system of, possession of a body for an investigation afterwards. And he was like, I can't tell you the exact hour it would have been in Salt Lake City, which is apparently where they do all of the autopsies and full-blown breakdowns after a murder has occurred in state. But he's like, it would have been somewhere between, say, 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. local time. If he was killed at 12:30 p.m. local time and pronounced dead by 2 p.m. local time, they would have gotten the body to Salt Lake City at that point. He named me every person that would have been in the room, literally by name, like he knew some of them, and what the legal requirements were. He walked me through exactly how they would have done the autopsy, which I will fuck up if I try to explain, but it involved where they put specific tools into areas of entry with the bullet, go through charting stuff, and I'm like, how long does that take? And he's like, a few hours. For a case like that, he knew exactly where the bullet had gone, and he's like, this is what they would have had to do. They would have had it done, he's like, by mid wee hours of the morning, which means he's like, do you understand how funeral parlors work? I'm like, no, Joseph, I really don't. He's like, okay. So they have the family gets a funeral parlor in Arizona where they're from. And funeral parlors work like florists in a lot of cases. So if someone's in another state, a florist can call another florist and say what they're going to need to prepare something ahead of time. So he's like, their local funeral parlor would have called the local one in Utah and said, here's what we need just to prepare the body initially before you get it here. It would have been within their possession by wee hours of the morning. They would have had that done in a few hours, and it would be ready for transport, which this was 33 minutes of him breaking it made sense. Down. And I was like, okay, great. I appreciate the explanation. Then they come out 2 weeks later and they're like, oh, there was no autopsy. And I haven't had a chance to have a full conversation, but I'm like, that's kind of weird, right? He's like, yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, we all saw him get killed on camera. You can see.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Is there a need for an autopsy though? When you know exactly what happened?
But the video that's taken is taken in 720p on an iPhone. The best one was taken, 30 feet away or whatever. You would think, and then the body goes down right away. You would think you would still want to know the exact angle so that you could cross-reference. Or maybe,
do you think the family was pushing not to have an autopsy? Like, hey, we know what happened. Let's get him back. Let's get him back.
But the family's
because in the moment.
But the family's not supposed to be involved with that.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right.
The legal system
shouldn't be, but if someone of that, you got the vice president coming in to take the body back, you got, maybe there was a little pressure there, we know what happened. We want to get him back.
But don't they set up these systems to be on a robotic assembly line? This happens, then this, to keep the emotion out of it.
Usually probably, but with something like this, you don't think there's pressure from, this is, again, you've got the vice president coming to take the body, maybe,
I could see it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, and you may very well be right. That doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
You know what I mean?
I also don't think they probably knew that, this was all going to take off the way it did with all, you know what I mean? The conspiracies, the all the different theories. At the time, maybe they didn't,
You don't think
maybe they didn't think we're going to have to disprove so many things.
I got to get you back on X.
Yeah.
Because that would have been my first thought.
I guess you're right. It was pretty immediate.
I would have been like, how do I make sure, if I were in charge of the investigation, I'm like, how do I make sure we are transparent on the right timeline, meaning like, let's not send out a tweet just to send out a tweet, but we get everything followed by the book, because this was, it was a political assassination.
Yeah.
He was a political commentator. There's nothing illegal about that. He was practicing his First Amendment right, and he was killed.
But they weren't following it by the book. I mean, because like, again, back to that tweet from Kash Patel, that was a big mistake.
Yes.
If they were following it by the book, that would not have happened.
I agree.
And clearly he, they wanted to calm everybody down quickly.
They didn't do that very effectively.
Yeah, no, the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these guys that you talk with, like you said, it's a state case, so they're handling it.
It's a state case. I think people forget that. It's a state case. The governor, not that he's like prosecuting the case, but I don't know. I don't know, but it's just hard for me to imagine that they're all in on it.
I don't think that would be the case in any scenario, like I said.
So they all got tricked too.
I think if there is something more surreptitious here, and there might not be, it might be Tyler Robinson was genuinely upset about Charlie Kirk's beliefs, disassociated, whatever it is, and shot him. That may very well be the outcome here. But I'm saying because of the mistakes they've made in the process and actions that have been taken since then, I fully understand why people are like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
And no, I do not think many people would be in on it at all. Like if you look at a famous one like Kennedy, people say like, oh, the CIA killed him. I agree. There are people at the CIA that knew about it. The CIA had how many thousands of people working there at the time? How many people you think knew about that? 2? 3? That's all it takes. You know what I mean? But then they say the whole place was responsible for it, which I understand that. But like the assumption in your head becomes, oh, everyone in the rank and file knew this was going to happen. No one fucking knew that was going to happen. I don't think the sheriff in Utah would be sitting there like, hey, they're going to kill Kirk today.
Yeah.
No, not for a second. But there are people, unfortunately, that think everyone's involved. And that's just not.
And there are weird things. I mean, like I said, even the roof thing I think is weird. I get that he's not like a presidential person. You don't get the same level of security, but that it was that easy to get on the roof.
Yeah,
with a straight shot. And you've got all the security around Charlie down on the ground, but like no one thought and it's interesting when you go there. It's a beautiful campus, by the way, but where that little amphitheater is where this was going on, there's like, you can get up on roofs all around. It's like, it kind of feels like the perfect place. Like they would never have a presidential rally there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like the perfect place to have like a bunch of snipers. Like that part is weird to me.
To defend his security on that front though, like you said, it's not a president coming in. They are paid there to be security, but the way I've seen it, maybe I'm wrong about this, the security arrived all with him. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know what their normal protocol was, but it didn't seem like they were security that did like pre-area checks on a radius.
And you wouldn't think they would. Look, like they say people are more famous in death sometimes,
Yes.
And I knew, of course, I covered Charlie Kirk. Most people I know knew who he was, but, if we were talking about this before, does Charlie Kirk need they probably didn't think they needed that level of, like.
I agree. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they walk up with him and they're checking in the immediate area, but shit, and people can run a whole down rabbit hole with this. They didn't even check 300 yards out for Trump when he was running for presidency.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, how far, even if he has beefed up security, which he did, like how far does it really go? I think that's where there's more of a simple explanation of like, well, they wouldn't have done that, but he did have a perfect shot. It's sinister when you see the one cell phone shot looking out before he's killed, and you see a little figure moving up there. I probably wouldn't have seen that if I were taking that video, because you're looking at all the people right in front of you. Once again, everything is hindsight 2020. I just wish they would have handled more of this by the book, because they're feeding a lot of this stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see if Tyler Robinson ends up in any way cooperating or something like that.
Well, the good thing is if he goes to trial, and I've covered a lot of trials, everything comes out.
Yeah.
So that'll be a time where we can really, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that. we'll see everything that they have.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if his boyfriend testified too.
Yeah.
That would definitely get a lot of
I
attention.
imagine he will have to.
As
sure.
As a state case, will this have cameras in the courtroom?
Yes. Yeah, they have cameras in Utah. That's why we've seen them so far. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So will you be out there?
Oh yeah.
For that
Yeah.
one?
And we'll see if it gets to, I wonder if he'll try to work some kind of deal to avoid the death penalty. But at the same time, I don't know if they're willing to take the death penalty off the table. I mean, the governor's talked about it several times. So
I don't think they can.
Which would mean, he'll probably have a trial.
Yeah. Real quick, Brian, I just got to run to the bathroom, but we'll come right back.
Sure.
1 sec.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. Before we get to Kohberger, by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet today. You also started your own YouTube channel.
I did, yeah.
Literally a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
You're fucking murdering it. It like that thing blew up overnight. I'm not like that surprised, but the hockey stick speed you're growing is crazy.
Thanks,
so
yeah.
keep going.
I'm trying. I'm working all the time.
Yeah.
I'm editing it all myself. I'm doing everything.
You're doing the editing
I'm
yourself
doing the
too?
editing, yeah. So I'm just banging them out and it's fun. I mean, it's really fun. I love it. It's cool. Cause but it's like, I'm not sleeping much.
Yeah, we got to get some of that off your plate as
Yeah,
someone
maybe
who
you can
edited
help
all
me
my
out.
shit for years
Did
and
you?
years
Yeah.
and years.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I still do edits, but like I have help now with
Yeah.
stuff.
I think there's something about just cause I've worked for, News Nation and networks and, there's so many people involved.
Yeah.
There's just something like about knowing that you did everything that's like, just feels so good.
It's a nice feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure I will have to give it up because I'll just probably die if I don't. It's something like I'll just collapse. But like for right now, like knowing that, it's exactly the way that I want it, it's pretty cool.
That is great.
Yeah.
How do you balance that though? Because I mean, you're reporting on stuff full time as well.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it overlaps with the content you then make. But
Yeah.
like, what's also the rules around that? Because you report for News Nation, but then you can make content on your own too. Like
basically,
how does that really
yeah.
work?
And I'm busy with News Nation, but like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of waiting around at stuff. There's a lot of times where I'll just be sitting in the car for 2 hours waiting on a press conference or just watching a house or at the scene of stuff. So I've got time I do a lot of them in the car. That's the thing. It's like it's not as cool as your studio and fancy and stuff. It's literally it's mostly me in the car sitting on the steps or because I got to I sort of work it in between my News Nation gigs. So it's a little more like rough around the edges.
But it's also like you did an amazing interview with one of the Kohberger victims' sisters. I believe it was Olivia Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Right. So you're doing a lot of content that also deals with, the people affected with the cases you cover on the ground. So do you have to is some of it like you do something for News Nation first and then you kind of build on that for your channel?
Yeah. For the most part. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't want to, most of the stuff, any news I would break on News Nation, that kind of thing, but I'll do it on my channel right after, talk about it. Because News Nation, it's like, there's limited time that I have there. I'm given like a 3-minute spot or a 4-minute spot. So I can really dig into things, afterwards on my channel, which is cool.
But then you do some fill-ins too, right?
I do.
Where you host shows?
Yeah. I filled in for Chris Cuomo last night. So like if Chris goes on vacation or Ashley Banfield or Elizabeth Vargas, then I go and I fill in for them.
That's a whole different ball game though too.
It is.
When you're doing like an hour-long show.
Yeah.
You got the script in front of you and then you're going off script to like describe things happening one story to another. It's kind of like a different part of the brain, right?
It is. And I'm not like I'm like a little road warrior. I'm always out on the road. I'm always in my car. I'm always a little grungy. So like, it's kind of weird for me. Like, I put the suit on. It just I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, like but it's
news
cool.
daddy Brian. You can't be feeling imposter syndrome.
Yeah. But then I just kind of own it. It's cool. It's fun to do it. It's just so different. Like with all the studio light, I'm used to being out in the field,
Yeah. That place is, I've been over there with Nishan, who was just in here with us for a while, but the whole like news bullpen and then you got the studio right there and there's lights everywhere. It's way different than this in every way. It's definitely like a little bit of a, like smaller stadium feel, if you will, but it's the people that work there. The fans.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird when you're there, but I got used to it, and I love News Nation. I believe in the mission, the whole trying to go down the middle and kind of the things we've been talking about, not tell people what to think.
I
kind
think
of old school, you know?
of everyone, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I've talked with Nishan about this. Of all the networks, it seemed to be just off the rails these days in whatever direction. News Nation is the closest thing to being like just trying to report on things. And I see people from different ends of the spectrum coming on there all the time. Yeah. It's really, I hope it stays that way.
It's harder too. I mean, it's harder to do that. People don't realize, like, it is so much harder to try to be fair and to try to be down the middle and get both sides. If you want to just go on one side, if you want to just believe one side, it's the easiest thing ever.
Click.
You just get the same people. You know what they're going to say. You have a built-in audience because people want to hear what they believe already. What we're doing is so hard. And it's cool though.
It's cool because it's also not the psychology of clicks, because like if you're, without naming other networks, if you're another network that leans one way or the other, not only are you playing to, exactly what's going on and you're playing to your base, you're also playing, like hater porn, if you will.
Yeah, of
For
course.
the other side, which gets you clicks and traffic. It's just people getting mad at each other.
Oh, if we had picked a side, we would be growing so much faster.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I knew, I was trying to figure this out. I didn't know shit, and I still don't know shit, but there's a couple things you figure out along the way. And I probably, after starting in 2020 and going all in on this, I knew by the beginning of 2022, if you really wanted to blow up in a space that covered anything news or like culture, just pick a side and go all in. And it's like, the second I saw that, I was like, oh, never, I'd have to like lie.
Yeah.
Because it would go against what I believe in too. I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that. But you see what people do. And I'm not calling people out, but I'll watch it happen and I'm like,
Yeah. I can't imagine doing that. Like, even with my own channel, even just the way I cover stories, like, I don't know. It's just, I guess the motivation is people want to get rich, or I'm just trying to think, like, I guess that's the main motivation of doing that. And I guess I just don't have, I would feel guilt.
Yeah.
I would feel bad about like putting out bad information, or, you know what I mean?
Yes, of course. Because you're like a normal, good person.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just weird. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to go to bed at night feeling bad about that. It's just not worth it. As long as I can like make enough money, but I don't need, to
Right. You also like, I've always had this theory, psychologists will talk about how everyone secretly wants to be famous. And I think there's tremendous data to back that.
Yeah.
Like everyone, even the people that are like, I would never want, like you would love to be able to be known for something or something like that. And I would love to be able to be known for what I do here and things. But I think there's a difference between the gene of wanting to be famous and wanting fame.
Yeah.
And not everyone wants the second one. The second one is like the types of people who want to have their agent call ahead of time when they're at a restaurant so the paparazzi's there and they can act like they're pissed about it, but really that's what they live for, right? And I think that in many cases, a lot of the people who will just kind of go all in on the clicks regardless of what they believe, there's an aspect of them that wants that kind of thing. Like even if it's hate, they just love the lights and camera and attention.
Even when it's negative.
Yes. And you don't have that. I don't have that. A lot of my friends who are public figures like that I know in the space don't have that. But then I see other people, I'm like,
yeah. I think it's finding that ground too of like, you want to be, you want your stuff to be seen. I mean, that's the whole point of you want your stuff to be seen. You want you want it to have value, but you don't want to cross over into that, like, you get too popular and then you just lose touch with reality. Even like coming here to New York City right now, filling in for Cuomo last night. Like, I like doing that, but even when I'm in the city, like you don't really know real America if you just live in that world.
Yes.
In the studio all the time. Like, I mean,
100%. It's a bubble.
Yeah, it's a bubble.
I think it's so, like, I just got back in last night, went out of town. Like, I think it's so important to get out of here and stuff and see things. The one thing I will say, though, about regardless of where you live is I think people also sometimes choose to live in that bubble. And I don't mean that physically. I mean that from like a curiosity perspective. Like, I was in the definition of a bubble when I lived in my parents' house as someone who's lifelong from New Jersey, a coastal warrior, whatever you want to call it. But I couldn't go anywhere because I had no money to go anywhere. But as I was growing the profile, I have always just gone out of my way to connect with people who are fans of this show or even haters of this show, like where they're from. I could talk to someone who's in Sweden or someone who's in Morocco or someone who's in Iowa or someone who's in New Mexico, and their whole life is different. And I'm like genuinely interested in what's important to them and why. Now, that's not the same as going there and understanding that, but I find myself when I'm walking down these streets in New York sometimes passing people and just kind of knowing that like, oh, this is their only reality.
Yeah.
They just know this. And it's like, dude, there's a whole wide world out there.
Yeah.
You have to understand people don't think like you do.
When it always amazes me that so much media is based out of New York, and it's like these people just live in this ecosystem but claim to understand the whole country and world. It's just weird.
It's
know?
very weird,
Yeah.
man. You gotta, I guess, broaden your horizons a little bit. But you know what? That's also, we've seen different movements, and I don't even mean this just politically. We've just seen cultural shifts over the last 10 to 15 years where it's clear that a lot of people, like I'll just speak for within this country, are like, fuck that.
Yeah.
You know, you can sit there, we have the internet now, we can talk to each other.
Right.
You can sit there and in your bully pulpit and pretend that you understand what's going on. But if you're talking bullshit, you're going to get called out for that.
Mhm.
And that's why we've seen, by the way, you know, I think that's why News Nation exists, because you're doing something that is against what the business model is supposed to be. And yet you're doing pretty well because there's enough people who are like, yo, fuck these people
Yeah.
that are over here and here just telling us what we already know we're going to hear from them.
Yeah. And you need people, even though there's so many people online now and so many podcasts, like you still need people to go out and find the information and actually report. Like,
That's right.
You got to show up and like try to talk to people and beg to get in and then ask the hard questions. Like if you don't do that, you know what I mean? That gives everybody else something to talk about too, you know?
Of course. But you have, I do want to get to it. You have been covering this Kohberger thing. Speaking of, you know, having to knock on doors and stuff, you've been covering that since, I guess, 2022 when this happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right after it happened.
You know, I did a podcast with Joseph in July, right? It came out like the day of the sentencing. We recorded it right before. And so there's at least like, we know what the outcome is. And Brian Kohberger pleaded guilty, admitted that he did this, though he did not speak in court. And at the end of the day, you know, one of the most brutal murder scenes that anyone had ever seen is what was at the middle of this. And 4, you know, sub 20-year-old kids were cut down long before their prime. You know, were you there? Was this another one where you were like on the scene like the next day or that day or?
No, not that soon. It was probably maybe 10 days, something like that. I was still one of the first national reporters. It hadn't really gotten full coverage yet. I don't know why. It was kind of like slow to roll out at first. But I was actually on vacation in Mexico, and one of the producers I work with was like, "Oh my God, did you see what happened in Idaho?" And so I ended up flying right from Mexico to Idaho. So
Now,
I think I was there like a week after, maybe a little less.
So were you there when?
It might have been less, actually. It might have been like 5-6 days after.
Yeah, you don't feel like a 10, 11.
Yeah, no, I think it was sooner.
Were you there when the police were starting to do their press conferences, I guess, to try to update the public on
Yes, but the problem was they only did like one, and then they didn't talk. They didn't talk at all in the beginning. So that was kind of one of those things that just led to the fire of, you know, speculation and thinking that, you know, different people were responsible, and they were very, very quiet for the first like first 3 weeks. I think there was only like one press conference.
What was your first thought on this case when you looked at it?
Like serial killer type deal. Like, I mean, just, you know, it was scary back then because when I got there, you know, no one knew anything about who did it. We didn't know if it was a small college town. We didn't know if it was someone in town. We didn't know if the person was a neighbor, was walking around when we were doing our live shots outside. I mean, there's just something especially eerie and freaky about that whole situation in the beginning. Even I remember like, and I've never done this, there was like a Fairfield in there. That's where I would always stay. And that was another one I stayed for like 6 weeks. When I got there, I never left. But I remember my room was on the first floor at first, and like I would never think like this, but I remember like I moved to the second floor because I was just like, this is like creepy here right now. Like even just wondering like, is the killer watching you when you're out doing your live shot? You know what I mean?
Yes. It's a little bit, obviously totally different setting here, but I always think about the first season of True Detective and how like the Louisiana, backcountry was a character, the setting itself, because it was just so eerie. Like, what is the needle in the middle of this haystack? And, you're out there in Idaho, it's in the mountains, it's a college campus and then a quiet area, and there's some needle in the middle of this haystack, allegedly, where someone's just like a brutal, grisly killer. It's not like New York, where unfortunately there's a murder every day.
Yeah.
And there's fucking 9 million people just on that one island.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different feel.
It's interesting, like just coming off the Charlie Kirk thing, there's something kind of similar. Like in Utah, there's this vibe there that like things like that don't happen there, and that like the people there aren't like really prepared for it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, and they're really nice in that part of Utah. I mean, it's mostly Mormon. And you just, I don't know, like even like on the campus showing up, like they didn't like kick you off right away. They're nice to the media. It's kind of the same in Idaho. Like they're just, you got this sense right away, like things like this don't happen here.
Yeah.
And like, they're not really like ready for this.
Did you, it's also like kids all in the middle of it, because like all the witnesses or, people who were the first ones there at the scene and stuff are literally college kids.
Yeah.
Just trying to have a good time and then coming upon something, absolutely crazy. Like, how hard is it trying to get sources when you're going to very, very shattered and righteously scared, very young adults, if you will.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, there was an Amazon doc that came out recently about it that kind of like painted me in a bad light, because there was video of me going to the frat house where one of the victims was in the fraternity, Ethan Chapin. And they somehow had video of me like going to the frat house, trying to talk to them. And it was a kind of a tricky situation, because it's like these kids have been victimized, and here suddenly got these reporters showing up, and how far do you know what I mean? Like
yes.
they're kids still young. And so yeah, it was tricky sort of navigating that. And it was kind of like with Gabby Petito, the attention level was so high. People were so into it. People wanted every little detail. You had people like people on social media not doing the right thing and reporting all just for clicks.
Yeah.
And there were decisions you had to make on the spot, like we were talking about with Gabby. I mean, I remember being outside the murder house in Idaho. This is probably a few weeks after, and everybody was into these frat brothers, like thinking, that maybe they had something to do with it, because Ethan was I don't know why, but there was just a lot of attention on the frats. And there was like a frat party happening one night while I was out there. And I remember it was loud. And I had this, like if I had reported that or shown video of that, it would have gone crazy. Like they're having a party after you know what I mean? Yeah. But people were forgetting that they were just college kids at the end of the day. Yeah. Like couple weeks had gone by, they were grieving in their own way. Like they had music on, like when you were there, you're like, this doesn't mean they did. But you know what I mean? You had to. So I never reported that, or I never showed the video, because it was like, I just knew like people are going to take advantage of this and make it seem like, oh, these kids, they must be involved, Of
course. I think that was a smart move on your part, just because of what the microscope was on it.
Yeah.
But I can't even comprehend being in that situation, but I fully understand that, once you're 5-6 days out of that and it's still scary, you want some normalcy,
of course,
to your life. And by the way, you feel a little more safe when you're in a large group of people. Yeah. So it's like, all right.
You're also in college. Like, right. I think back to when you're not like, you're not thinking like an adult of how they would handle something.
Yeah. What was the one? It's so bad. I can't remember her name. The one, there were 2 other girls in the house who were not killed.
Oh yeah. You're right. Dylan and Bethany.
Right. Yeah. So Dylan, what they did to that girl.
Oh my God.
On social media.
Don't even get me started. They still do. It's insane. Still. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories and theories about her, and she's just been like through hell. I mean, that girl is I don't know if you saw her at the sentencing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, she showed up, she spoke, and she is like beyond strong.
Yes.
And people still won't leave her alone.
And she was at that, righteously so, at that sentencing hearing, distraught beyond belief. And this is 3 years later.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it was? No. Imagine, she'll never be the same.
You don't, you know, you're a little tipsy. It's late at night.
Yeah.
It's a dark house. You don't know what's going on. You're a little frozen. You go back into your room or you go to the basement with your friend. Like, I don't understand why that was so hard for people to understand.
I think it just goes back to
reaction.
what we said. Like, there's always going to be people who, no matter what, that's what I tell people that I do stories with. And they're like, I read the comments and I saw, it's like, there's always going to be, no matter what, you could do the most incredible thing in the world. And there's going to be a group of people that come out to say the opposite and say you're bad. It just,
It's how it is.
yeah.
And like, but that's, you know, you and I choose to be on the
Correct.
internet and choose to do this for a living. Like, if you're not okay with that, you're in the wrong game.
Yeah.
It is, I have a lot of empathy for it when it's someone who gets, you know, through no fault of their own, caught in the middle of being at this crazy story, and then they have to be put through that.
Yeah.
Especially when they're a kid.
It's terrible.
You know, and people question every little thing you do. It's like, obviously she didn't have anything to do with it, but you don't know how you would handle that in that situation. Your mind is not 100% there,
Yeah.
and you get scared. And the next day, like, I remember, I think I did see the Amazon doc. There were 2 that came out. I'm pretty sure I saw the Amazon one, but like, that was the James Patterson one.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, they're describing, some of the other friends are describing the next morning when they're outside the house before, I guess, one of the friends had gone in to find the bodies. And she's just like, Dylan was just delirious. Like, what the fuck? I know something bad happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why this is so hard for people to put that together.
No.
You know?
And also, like, it's over. Like, Brian Kohberger pled guilty. His DNA was on the knife sheath. His surveillance video got his car coming and going. The cell phone tracking got, like, there's no, I think it just becomes, again, almost like a board game for people. Like, they just want to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
You know?
No, they didn't catch him, though, for what, like 6 weeks after that?
Yeah,
6,
no,
7
longer.
weeks?
Yeah.
8 weeks?
Yeah, it was December. Yeah, it was like almost 2 months.
And they're killed on like November 13th?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yep.
So you're on the scene while this is in limbo.
Yeah.
And he's not caught.
Yep.
I can't remember. Did they have other suspects or anything or any information?
Nothing. It was that's what kind of was fueling all of this. Like, there was no information coming out. Police weren't talking. We were really hard on the police because at the time we just thought they knew nothing. So after a while, we're just like, what is wrong with these? You know, we were being hard on them, even on TV. The families were being hard on them. And there was no rumbling of anything. Then they finally released a photo of the white Hyundai Elantra, which we later knew belonged to Kohberger. So that was the first real, like, piece of something we had to go with as, you know, reporters. We were putting the picture out. You know, people were talking to us. Oh, I know someone in a lot. Like, that was the first, like, clue we really had from police. But then it was still quiet for a while after that.
Were you in touch with the victims' families during that time?
Yes. Yep.
What was that like?
It was sad. I mean, it was awful, as you can imagine, and not only awful because they were killed, but because they were scared that this person was still out there.
Yeah.
Especially the Gonzalez family, I became pretty close to, and I remember I went to their house a couple times. They lived in Coeur d'Alene, which is like 2.5 hours away. So I would drive out to their house to talk to them, and just going in there, it was like they were all like held up in there as a family.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just really on edge. And with them, you know, they were grieving their daughter, but they had kind of transferred all of those emotions into like focusing on like what happened, and just like, it was almost like a little nerve center in there. They're all on their computer. You know what I mean? They were trying to solve it themselves. And it was an awful, awful time.
What did you think when you first saw Kohberger and they announced that they had somebody?
Well, I actually got a tip. So I just assumed, like, I don't know why, in the back of my mind, I thought they were going to find the person in Idaho, like just somewhere around, you know, which he ended up being connected to the area, but I didn't know it was going to end up being Pennsylvania. Right. So I got a tip that they had someone in custody in Pennsylvania. And I remember calling my boss, excuse me, and saying, like, this isn't I don't have enough info to report this, but like, I need to go to Pennsylvania. Like, it's a good enough source that I need to fly to Pennsylvania to get ahead of this. So I flew to Pennsylvania, and then when I landed, we got enough info to go with the news that he had been arrested. He was at his parents' house. And the first time I saw him was that next morning. He made his first court appearance, in Pennsylvania, and they walked him in through the back door. So I was out back, filming with my cell phone. And I remember thinking, I guess I can say all this now since he's, I tried to be very careful for a long time, innocent till proven guilty,
Right.
doing the right thing, but now it really doesn't matter. I remember thinking he was kind of looked like a monster.
Yeah.
Like what you see in the movies, like a serial killer from the movies, like emotionless, darty eye, just
Yeah.
I remember thinking this is exactly what you would expect this person to look like.
It's another one of those that you wonder how someone like this functioned in normal society before they did this without people going, what the fuck?
Well, they did go, what the fuck?
But they didn't, no one talked about it.
Yeah.
Right? No way. I guess you can't, there's some ways you can't do things with that, but there were enough people who also thought yeah, he's a little weird, but whatever.
There were.
Because there's, like you said, that's how, and I never saw him in person. You did, but
yeah,
dead
eyes.
Dead.
Yeah.
behind
Even
the
during the
eyes.
sentencing with all of that emotion.
Yep.
I mean, no one could not look a little sad during that. And he just dead eyes,
Yeah, it seemed to me like something was very, very off there. Almost like I would describe it like the Manchurian Candidate kind of killer. Does someone inject you with something that you're not even here? People talk about this whole demonic thing. I've never really believed in that kind of stuff, but if you did, you'd be like, okay,
yeah,
that's it.
Well, and more stuff has been coming out now still. They're still releasing documents, unsealing things. And, one of the things that came out last week was a list of all the wounds on the victims. Mm-hmm. And it's just becoming more clear. At first we thought there were a lot of defensive wounds. Maybe they woke up and fought back. But now it's looking like, and we'll never know the answer to a lot of these things. But he may have just been even after they were dead, still just stabbing them in different places on their bodies and stuff.
Was this would you say, based on the evidence we have, this is one of those, besides the fact that he's a deranged, dead behind the eyes guy, this is some sort of incel, sexually charged act of murder here?
So we'll never know. We don't know why he did it. I'd say that first. There's never been a motive. There's never been a motive. The police have never even said why. He's never said why. So we don't know why. My own just personal feeling, which is just my own opinion from covering this, I think he hated women because of rejection, probably.
I think you're right.
That's just my own feeling. And I think that built up over time, in addition to him probably being a sociopath and just a nut job and being rejected from society. And I think that, you had these pretty girls who he probably hated because he knew he could never get them. And, I think probably Ethan Chapin was just in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Yes. Yeah, I think
that's just literally my own opinion.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And it goes into the theme I was getting at there. It's just some sort of pent up anger. There was another case, I forget the guy's name, but they mentioned in that documentary, another case of the incel killer from a few years before who had been a serial killer for the same reasons. And there were a lot of the same kind of patterns. Oh, fuck you. You're not going to pick me? Then I'm going to kill you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's people joke about, oh, make friends with that kid because he'd be the school shooter or whatever. But you do, unfortunately, in society now have to be vigilant at people who seem off around you. And, I don't know if you can change outcomes, but, do your little part to try to make someone feel seen, because you don't know if one little ripple effect can change somebody. I'm not saying it does. If someone's truly sick, then they're just sick. But it does seem like he was always just kind of cast off and then probably played himself into that role for a long time.
Well, and the whole part of him getting his PhD in criminology.
Yeah.
And then he got his master's in criminology and studying death scenes and studying serial killers. And even at one point trying to do a survey to get into the mind of criminals and killers. So there's also that side of it. Did he hate women? But I think it's probably a combination, but I think he also wanted to see what it would feel like to do that.
Yes.
After studying these people so much. And I've interviewed none of his professors in he went to Washington State University, which is right near where it happened in Idaho, have spoken. But one of his professors in Pennsylvania, Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who is like the world's premier serial killer expert, she was his advisor in Pennsylvania. And I did an interview with her after the sentencing or after the plea deal. And, it's just weird, like to think that she's spent her whole life studying serial killers and now one of her students ended up being this guy.
Yeah, Joseph talked about that because he's a professor. Scott Morgan.
Yep.
And has been a long time professor now. And he's like, it could happen. You know, when someone, that's why you got to pay attention and try to see like, and that's kind of a weird question, the way they asked that. But again, it's another situation where it's like hindsight 2020. Her job was to take people, in this case, they literally had like a dummy house.
They
where they could recreate things. And her student's job is to ask those kinds of questions. So it's like, what the fuck?
But she said it's always in the back of your mind. Like, is there going to be one who's got bad intentions? Because you're teaching them how all of this works.
Did she feel guilty?
I don't know if guilty is the right word. I think she felt like, wow, this guy got one over me. Like I'm the world's expert on this. And she didn't see it, she said. She didn't ever suspect it. It's interesting when he was in Pennsylvania, there weren't that many stories from when he was in school about him being weird or him being awful to women. It was after he moved and to get his PhD in Washington State, it seemed like something changed. There were all sorts of police reports that we were able to get of people who were interviewed, colleagues and people in his PhD program who were really scared of him, who really, they thought he was stalking them outside their house at night, women. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff when he got to Washington. And I wonder, like, he's very close to his parents, his mom. I don't know if like something changed when he moved away.
I could see that. Yeah, it's like he always had the one kind of home base.
Yeah, or maybe that kept him in line a little bit,
Yeah, there were weird, eerie messages from like his mom online and forums too, talking about like she worries about her kid. And stuff like that. You wonder if the intuition was there. And this was another situation where like the dad was being questioned because there's the famous Bodycam footage of, the two of them driving across the country. They got stopped for speeding like twice. And it's like, it was after the murder. He went and like picked them up in Washington.
They were driving back for Christmas break from Washington across the whole country, which a lot of people always thought was weird. Like, why wouldn't you just get a flight? Why would he want to bring the car back? And there's all sorts of theories about, whatever. But yeah, there people also thought like, were they tracking them at that time? And that was secretly like the FBI just trying to keep an eye on him when he was driving back. But they've since said that's not the case. It was just coincidence that he got pulled over twice.
Right.
I think it was in Indiana.
Right. And then wasn't it like his sister thought, because he had two sisters, they're all home for Christmas with the family, and then his sisters thought something was off and thought he might have something to do with it?
Yeah, so I never was able to confirm that, but there's been reporting, like NBC reported that one of the sisters was suspicious of him cleaning the car, just doing weird things, and knew about, what had happened with the murders and may have suspected him. So yeah, it's weird. And like, again, all this stuff is coming out now. I mean, we got his cell phone history and, he was on the phone with his mom for hours the morning after the murders. There's a lot of unanswered questions still that we may just never know. People don't realize, I mean, he didn't have to clear all this up to plead guilty. All he had to do was check a box.
Well, that's another thing. You got very close with the Gonsalves family. There were obviously 4 different victims here, 4 different families. That family in particular was very incensed about the prosecutors cutting a deal with Kohberger. Now, they did get to have their day in court to address him, and they all did an amazing job, by the way. But, the other families, some of them, like the Chapins in particular, seemed to be happy that it was closed off. Well, was there a weird dynamic there with the families having a disagreement on how this was handled?
Yeah, it was kind of weird a couple of times. I mean, they were always respectful to each other, like in public. But I think, you had just a difference of opinion, like the Chapins were always very focused on Ethan and remembering him. And they never really were that interested in talking about the case or about Brian Kohberger. and they were okay with the plea deal. They didn't come to the sentencing. They went to I think out on a lake to remember Ethan that day. So it was just a different way of grieving. And the Gonzalez's were just like, they were just like fighters from the beginning. Like that was, I mean, even the first time I met Steve Gonzalez, Kaylee Gonzalez's dad, it was like, he was mad at the police. They weren't doing enough fast enough. He was, you know what I mean? And then he was mad at I think that's just his way of grieving, of coping, of, you know what I mean?
Yes. And, I can't imagine how you would handle that, but it seemed like at the crux of it, they were upset that he was now going to have the option to not have to explain why he did this. Yeah. But if it went to trial and he doesn't testify in his own defense, which he has a right to remain silent, would he have ever explained it? You know what I mean?
He may not have. I think they were frustrated though, because there was just this, there was this feeling in some ways that people in Idaho, that the Moscow, Idaho, the town where this happened, a lot of people just kind of wanted to get this over with. Didn't really want there to be a trial. I mean, the fact that they tore the house down so quickly, they wanted to get the college town back to normal. That was weird. The first judge on the case, like, clearly didn't even want to be on the case and like wanted to get off of it. And I think the Gonzalez's just felt like, everybody just wanted to wipe their hands at this thing. Like, let's just get it over with. Whereas they were like, wait a minute, we want to know everything. We want all the details to come out. Like, we don't want to just rush this along.
Yeah. It's just like looking at it. I would not want to be a fly on the wall in the conversations the victims' families had to have together, because they all have the same end result here, which is that they've all had the worst thing happen and they've lost a kid. But, there's, on the one hand, I really respect like the fighter aspect of the Gonzalez's. And then also at the same time, like, I totally respect this. I would describe it as like the unbelievable strength of like the Chapin family, like listening to them talk on that James Patterson documentary. They were, kudos to them on how they've handled this. So there's like, they're polar opposites in a way, but I understand and respect both. And then, like I was saying, you did an interview with Olivia Gonzalez. That's her name. So that's the sister.
That's Kaylee's sister.
Kaylee's sister. She gave a pretty unbelievable victim impact statement.
She did.
In court. How did the family, whether it was Steve or Olivia or just in general, how did the family feel after they at least got to say their piece in court to him?
I think they felt relief. I know they went into that, they were told, don't make eye contact with him, don't address him.
Who's telling them that?
Like the court, there's these victim advocates, like, you can make your statement, but don't make eye contact with him. This is not to address him. And they basically went in like, we're breaking the rules immediately. Like, when Steve went first, I don't know if you noticed, he immediately literally turned the podium towards him. And then Olivia has said she went in thinking like, I might get arrested for this. Cause like they were doing everything they were told not to do, but they felt like they had to do that. And Olivia's whole intention was like, I think everybody knows that I love my sister. This isn't a moment to remember my sister. This is like a moment to try to get under his skin, because this might be our only chance. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to take the power back. Like, they felt like for so long that he had the power. In a way, he did. I mean, the defense was fighting every little thing. It all got delayed year after year. They'd have to take off work to drive to these hearings constantly. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was like, finally they wanted to like reclaim some of that power in that moment with him. And I think they did. I mean, I think they did. And you mentioned like all the families were different and they had different ways of dealing with this, but I was at the sentencing sitting right behind the families, and there was this feeling like their power was overshadowing him like altogether in that part of the courtroom. Like, you could just feel the energy. It really was a powerful moment.
What did you think of up until, like, he pleaded guilty, but literally up until the last week where he was pleading guilty, there were strategies coming out of the defense's side where they were trying to claim multiple things, including pinning it on someone else. Yeah. I forget who that was.
Alternate perpetrators, they called it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's a weird spot to be in because your job is to defend your client. But what did you think of like the defense trying to come up with those elaborate, point the finger over here, and then being like, oh, by the way, he's guilty?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, so like my dad's a criminal defense lawyer. So,
really?
Yeah. So I grew up with that, like, you know, crazy 90s in Miami. And my dad's like mostly drug dealers at that time. So that was kind of like, I have a lot of respect for criminal defense lawyers. So I'm not one that just comes in like, you know, F. Ann Taylor, his lawyer, you know what I mean? I get that they have a job to do, you know, because that's like how I grew up. So I never felt like any disdain towards her. I was really shocked by there being a plea deal. Like I didn't see it coming at all.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I broke the news. I got a scoop on it, but it was only a couple days. I knew about it for a couple days, was trying to confirm it, and then finally confirmed it. But before I started hearing the rumblings, like I 100 people would say to me, "Oh, there's probably going to be a plea. You won't have to cover the trial." I'm like, "No, there's definitely not going to be a plea."
I mean, it was like damn near 3 years
Yeah.
he was holding out. Like over 2.5.
Yeah. And I just got this vibe like he wanted to fight this. Like he thought he was smarter than everyone else in the room. He was getting his PhD in criminal, you know what I mean? And also kind of like, what did he have to lose?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, I guess it was he didn't want. They had the death penalty out there, right? That was on the
They
table.
did. But the death penalty in Idaho, I mean, these guys sit there 30, 40 years minimum.
Also, like
I still think that's weird. Like, I think what did he have to lose? I would really like to know why he ended up pleading. I may never know, but like, I don't know if it has something to do with his parents when they were going to have to, I mean, now this stuff we're learning about him being on the phone with his mom, like, was he trying to protect them from having to go through you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cause I just don't know. Again, if he didn't plea, he would have, if he lost at trial, he could have appealed forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think he has it emotionally in him to protect anyone, including his parents.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good
my guess
point.
would be even his parents are a transactional relationship for him, even if that's not how they feel.
Yeah.
Like they talked about him being on the phone with his mom from his prison cell every day. I wouldn't suspect that that's from a place of love. I would suspect that's from a place of necessity, trying to get something for himself.
It could be.
I agree with you. I would love to know what changed there. Because like you said, when he was in there listening to all these insanely well-given statements that were harsh to a T, right to his face, he didn't flinch. And then what did he say? He was like, I respectfully declined.
Yeah, I respectfully declined when they asked if he had anything else to say.
He didn't say anything.
Nah. And everyone was waiting. We were all waiting to see, like, is he going to say something? Is he going to address the victims? And he didn't do it.
Ugh,
Yeah.
it's a strange one.
It is. I wonder if we'll ever know. I mean, at some point, you know, like Dr. Ramsland, the professor, has told me, you know, she studies serial killers in prison. That's like what she does.
Yes.
She did it with BTK. That's like her thing. So I was like, would you study Brian Kohberger, your former student? And she said, yes, she would.
And
so that may be a way we find out more, because he's got a relationship with her.
I hope when she does that, though, if it's her or whoever it is, I hope these things are done correctly by study for law enforcement learning purposes, and they don't get put on 20/20 so he gets exactly what he wants.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. And I've thought a lot about that, like, because even Olivia, Kaylee's sister, she's got all these questions. And I've said, like, would you want someone to interview him? Like, would you want that? And she's like, well, yes, for like law enforcement purposes, but not, you know, for like a TV special. And I've even thought about it, like, you know, if he wanted to talk to me, like, how would I handle that? And I really don't know. I mean, it's a tough ethical,
huge.
It's a hard one, you know?
Yeah.
Because you give these guys attention and that's what they want.
Yeah. And like, he's admitted the guilt as
Correct.
well. He's not.
It's
going
very
to the
different
death
before
penalty.
he admitted the guilt, I think, because when someone's innocent until proven guilty, it's like they sort of have a voice.
Yeah. I hope you're not put in that position.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd really want to interview him, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten close to the families and it's just, I don't know, it'd be a weird situation.
Yeah. How was it after the fact, like interviewing Olivia, once she had like at least her day in court with that?
She's a lovely woman. She's so strong, really smart, really cool. I like her a lot. And I mean, she's just, I could tell, you know, they were so upset about the plea deal, but then I could tell they were a little relieved.
That's over.
They were. You know what I mean? They were mad at first, but even now, I had dinner with them a couple weeks ago. They feel like a weight has been taken off their shoulders a little bit. I can tell. And even Olivia just recently went and had a meeting with the prosecutor and the police just by herself, which is, you know, a few years ago I'd have been like, this is going to be crazy because they hated each other so much. You know, what I shouldn't say hate, but, and even she said, I left the meeting like I have more of a respect for them now. I think tensions are settling a little bit.
Yeah, and that's good because it didn't feel to me like there was any ill intent or anything like that with the prosecution. Again, they're weighing the fact that they have 4 different families here, 4 different victims. The case has been going on for 3 years. The guy was going to admit that he did it. You know?
It's just that these victims, and this is just the way our system's set up, but the system is set up to protect the defendants. That is the way it's all set up. Right. And so these victims, and I see it time and time again, when you haven't seen this and you're new to this, and these people get thrown into it, they don't realize like you don't have the rights.
Yeah. You
get kind of screwed over throughout the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is about protecting the defendant. And it's hurtful to people. I mean, that's the way, you know, that's the way it's set up, but it's hard when you're going through it.
Yeah, and I, from a constitutional perspective, I understand that.
Yeah, of course.
I understand that. It's just, you know, you're living as as the family of a victim, you're living in limbo during that whole process, and that's, you know, it's tough to imagine that. That is nice to hear that at least there's been dialogue after the fact now.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, you're not demonizing each other or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would understand why that would happen. But, you know, do you ever, because your dad literally did this, I would imagine whenever you're working on a case of any profile, like, do you ask him about it or like how he would handle it?
Totally. Yeah.
So what did he think of the handling of that case?
You know, it's funny with Kohberger, I asked him, I remember it was weird. You know, Ann Taylor was his main lawyer, this woman. I don't know if you remember seeing her, blonde lady. Yeah. And she's never spoken. I mean, she's never spoken to any media, so I don't know much about her. But she would always, like, I went to pretty much every single hearing for years. I'd fly to Idaho for everyone. And she would always, like, hand on the shoulder with Brian Kohberger. They would kind of laugh. I don't want to use the word. It wasn't flirting, but it was like a kind of a deliberate like humanization of him.
Yes.
And between a man and a woman and knowing what he was accused of, it was just a little disturbing at times. Like I would notice it and I'd be like, this is like before court would start, they'd bring him in and they would have these like light, funny moments together. And it always kind of just like struck me. So anyway, I remember asking my dad about that and he's like, oh yeah, that's totally by design. Like they do that on purpose because they're trying to show you that this guy's a normal guy and not a killer. That's what you do.
Yeah, she can't sit there and look at the jury and be like,
right, right. And this was even long before there was going to be a trial or anything.
The judge, anything.
But she started, and they knew that the cameras were on, and they knew that we were in the room, and so that was one thing I remember asking my dad about. But I always like chat with him about stuff, and
that's useful.
It is
like you grew up around it. You grew up in Miami around it too, so you've seen some interesting shit. You know? That's definitely it makes sense, like why you understand this really well. But also, you know, the defense attorneys, like one of my friends is Brian McMonagle, who, you know, one of the best defense attorneys to ever live.
Yeah.
One of the greatest guys ever, right? The reality is he defends people who in some cases are extremely guilty of like the worst shit. And I've asked him about this before we did it back in the day in episode 115, you know, how do you balance that? And number one, it's like I was saying earlier, it's about putting the government to the test, constitutional rights, and he looks at that objectively. Number two, he said there's a strange thing that happens, though, where even people who maybe really actually are really bad, you're sitting with them so much that they do little human things. Yeah. And you remember they're a human, and it doesn't take away what they did or make it right or not make it good that the outcome goes against them in some cases after he has properly done his job, but you get in it. You know what I mean? And I don't know, that always stuck with me because I'm like, I deal with people on a day-to-day basis in this job. I really get to know people well. And you wonder, like, if you're spending 10 hours a day with someone, even if they are like actually the worst person, if like a part of you getting invested in it sees, like, as hard as this might be to believe with someone like Kohberger, sees like something that's not the worst thing ever.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, Kohberger is an extreme. Like, you know, I don't know if you believe in evil or whatever, but I mean, that's a bad, I mean, what he did is just, there's really no way that I could sit with Kohberger and feel probably much. And there's a, you know, like you think about like pedophile. I mean, there's really bad stuff, but like with my dad's guys, like, you know, people are complicated. Like drug dealers aren't always, you know, they also might have a nice family and they love their kids. You know what I mean? It get with like people who aren't murderers, there's a little more gray there where you can probably kind of feel bad for them and think of the way they were brought up, or think, you know, they just got carried away with wanting money or whatever. Not that that's right, but you know, it's a lot different than when you're talking about like a Kohberger. Yes. Whereas most of my dad's clients growing up were drug dealers and that kind of thing.
I do agree. There's some differences there. It's interesting though, because like when I've talked to guys who had to go undercover with cartel dudes who were murderers too, in addition to being drug dealers, it's like they would even talk about it when they went and hung out with them at their homes. Yeah. They're like, there's a different side of them. Yeah. They're like, is that because they're just a total sociopath? Or is that because they got stuck in a world and they know that there's a switch that has to go off somewhere else, which doesn't make it right at all. But it's like, it's a strange thing. Like, what are you dealing with here? You know? And then if you're a lawyer and you're dealing with someone who's followed, not Kohberger necessarily, but someone else, think of someone less demonic, but someone who's maybe followed the law their whole life and then did something in passion that just made an awful decision. It's like you get caught up in seeing them for the person they were during every other frame rate of their life besides this one moment. Yeah. It's, you know, I don't envy it. I don't envy it at all, being in that room. It's a strange dynamic for sure.
I think it probably just becomes like with my dad, I think you just get used to it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds weird, but
no, I know.
You do it your whole life. It's just,
you do it over and over again. It's like an assembly line. Yeah. What draws you to a story?
It's a good question. You know, a lot of reporters have like beats and stuff, and I guess I had been doing a lot of crime. Well, the first thing that probably does is like something that no one else has covered. Like it's kind of lame when you go to a story that everybody's covering. Right. Although you find ways to make it unique in your own, and find stuff different than what other people are finding. But like I find my thrill is in like when no one else is there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're going to be the one. It's something really good, really important, and you're going to be the one who, you know, who exposes something. Like I said, my interests are all over the place. But I did this story like 2.5 years ago. Long story short, this like Chinese company was buying up this farmland in Michigan, going to build this big battery plant, like multi-billion-dollar battery plant. And like no one cared. They weren't getting any coverage. We kept going out there and doing stories. Long story short, I just found out yesterday that the deal's finally dead. And I'm like so happy for these people in Michigan because it's all these farmers and they've been fighting forever. And it was really shady. Like this company in their corporate documents had in black and white like an allegiance to the CCP, and they were still getting like subsidies from Michigan State. Like it was insane. But what made me think of that is just like no one else was really covering it. And I feel like we actually like made a difference doing all these stories, you know?
Yeah, you came in with the flashlight.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
Yeah. And it's scary sometimes when you do that in the beginning, especially when you got like a big company like that, you know, and you're like, oh my God, like, am I going to get sued? Like, you know, you got to really be careful because you're the only one.
Yes, especially if there's not cameras everywhere too. You know, it's like, who the fuck else is involved here? Yeah. Like, what went they do
Correct.
to me?
But like it was a long road, and for them finally to for the deal to be dead, like stuff like that feels so good because you really made, and like no one, you're not asking me about that story. Like no one really. It wasn't like
I didn't know you covered.
Yeah, it wasn't my top story on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like but it's those that no one knows about or aren't as popular that are like, I don't know, like we really made a difference there. You know what I mean? Like these people got to keep their farms. Like there's not an electric Chinese battery company going into this random Michigan small town, you know? That's really feels good. Like I feel like that's where it's like, wow, we really made a difference.
You ever seen the map of like Chinese farmland?
Of course.
Of course. I mean, I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Of course you have.
It's crazy. Like, and your military bases and
right next to them. Like I was telling you about Jorge Ventura because that's how I initially got connected with Nishan. But one of the ways he went like really viral when he was in here was he was explaining like the setup like immigration process, illegal immigration process that the CCP will take advantage of to get people in here, and then how we lose them coming into the country. And like
it's
you
insane.
Found a company that's profiting off this.
And that's that. So I did that story, and then I got like into just like these Chinese stories. Like it's kind of just been like a side like hustle of mine. Like, you know, I'm still doing a lot of crime, like true crime stuff, but I started once I did that one, I started hearing about other factories. And so I started just traveling around the country and did like 4 or 5 more. I was just in New Hampshire doing one. Cause it's weird. I got like, almost like with the true crime people, I got like in this little world where they all started calling me and when they heard about new Chinese companies trying to buy land and stuff. So that's kind of been like an interest of mine. I did this story in Oklahoma about like a secret underground Chinese pot business, which is really big there.
You were on that too?
Yeah, I was there. Yep.
Wow.
We got a lot of undercover video. So like that kind of stuff I really like. I like boots on the ground. I like surveillance, like old school journalism. You know, people don't do that anymore. You sit in a car, you watch for a couple of days to see what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you have like a major, outside of the guys who were your heroes that you have your mom drive you to when they were doing news reports, did you have like a journalist or a group of journalist heroes growing up that you really loved how they did?
I mean,
a
lot of the local people, like, I mean, who you wouldn't even know their names. This woman, Carmel Cafaro, was amazing in Miami back. She'd been there forever. Nationally, yeah, I still do. I used to really like Anderson Cooper growing up. Like I remember I was young when he was covering Katrina. I don't know if you remember, like
I remember a little bit.
Yeah.
Katrina,
And he
crazy.
was, you know, really like embedded for months there. And I remember thinking like, wow, like to just like, he stayed there. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of people do really good work.
Well, Brian, I got a lot more questions for you. There's a lot more cases we can go through, but you do have to catch a flight.
I do have a flight. Yeah.
I got to get you out of here, but we got to do this again, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Your reporting, I've been following it for years. It's amazing work, and it's nice to actually meet you and see how passionate you are about it as well. But that's also really cool. You're doing some of these stories like the one you just mentioned with the company in Michigan with the CCP that you know make a big difference when you actually like shine a light on it.
Yeah,
Awesome
and anybody
stuff.
can email me or DM me. Like I get my best stories that way. So anybody who sees this, like I actually read everything.
Great.
So
okay, so we'll have your Instagram and your X posted down below. Anything else you want down there?
Yeah,
too?
you can put my YouTube channel.
YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Of course, love your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We'll collab this too, so that
Awesome.
your YouTube channel like is actually on the video as well. So
Okay,
people,
cool.
you can literally click. I'll give you the link before to do that. You can literally click like under the title of this video. Brian's channel is right there, and like I said.
Thank you.
Fucking amazing growth, bro.
Thank you.
It's very impressive, but not surprising. So keep going.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.